Welcome to the Boat Park, Skiff fans. Here we are for race 8. That's just today and tomorrow to go for the 2019 JJ Giltinan Championships from, well, here we are, Double Bay, Sydney, Australia. It's a bit overcast today, but it's looking like 15 knots of breeze from the south. We're definitely going racing today. Racing is going to be on time. Remember, 2:45 is the start time. Live from the Camera Cat on the water at 2:30. Don't miss it. Today's race is sponsored by Smeg, and I've got with me Michael Coxon, the skipper of Smeg. Coco, you've been saying all week you just want to be in it come the last couple of days. Well, you seem to be right in it.
Yeah, Mark, look, we are just in it by the skin of our teeth. There's a little bit of a gap between Honda, who are leading, and to Winning Group. We're a point behind Winning Group. So I guess our attitude today is go out and try and win the race, sail clean, and see what chips fall our way. Hopefully a few more this time.
As you said, Honda Marine are leading overall. They're last year's champion as well. It's hard to be anything but impressed by their consistency.
Yeah, they've done a great job in terms of getting themselves out of jail a few times, especially the last race on Thursday. They came from quite deep in the pack to actually win the race, and that was a bit of our undoing, unfortunately. But hopefully today we can turn the tables on that, and yeah, look, we just want to have a good one. We've got Paul down here from Smeg and the team, so we definitely want to try and put on a good show for them.
Yeah, Paul from Smeg, you're not just from Smeg, you're the CFO of Smeg, aren't you?
Yes,
great job title. Tell me about Smeg's relationship and commitment to the skiffs.
Right, Smeg's been part of this for about 22 years. I think we've been sponsoring this event. So, and today we've always sponsored the second last race of the JJs and have done for a long time. So, no, looking forward to it. I've got every confidence in the boys. I'm sure they will deliver today, and yeah, hopefully get us back to at least a second spot position. So we're looking forward to a good race anyway.
Well, look, you've got a very strong crew, that is for sure, and thank you so much for being one of our longest term sponsors. So that's the setup for today. Honda Marine in the box seats, but Winning Group and Smeg are still very much in it. Join us on the water, 2:30 live from the Camera Cat. Goodbye for the Boat Park. Hey Skiff fans, back in the Boat Park. I'm here with the Commodore of the Skiff Club, Simon Nern, from England originally, but you're pretty much an Aussie now.
14 years, Mark. An Aussie as far as sailing is concerned, not with the cricket and the rugby.
That sounds good. Now look, this fleet, the racing we see here today, it doesn't happen by accident, does it? We've talked all week about the importance of sponsors, but what else does it take to make this regatta and this event and this fleet keep rolling year after year?
I think we've got a unique setup. I don't know anywhere else in the world where you can turn up, someone else pays for your boat and you're sailing, and that's what we have here. So it requires sailors to be contractually committed to being here every Sunday. They can't just come and go as they please, because we've got an expectation from the club and from the sponsors to put on, you know, a massive show every Sunday, as well as during this JJ Giltinan. So that's the first thing. We need the sailors. We need good sailors coming through, keen to come and sail here, and we can make that happen for them. From a commercial perspective, you need a club that's pumping with the bar and the restaurant and the sponsors that come through and enjoy it so much here. That's all part of it, and that's where the funds come from. And make it all possible.
And you've got the most extraordinary location here, haven't you? An amazing club right on the waterfront in Double Bay, on probably the most picturesque harbour on planet Earth. You've got some of the odds in your favour.
Well, there's no coincidence I've ended up here instead of Hayling Island or somewhere like that in the UK. You know, it's Sydney Harbour. It doesn't get any better than this. I'm a bit biased with the 18s. There's plenty of other boats coming through, a lot of foiling craft and so on, but I think the challenge with these boats is still immense and really good fun. And as I say, lots of sailors hopefully coming through that want to do it.
Yeah, it is a challenging fleet and class, that is for certain, but nothing can stand still. What are your plans for this one design fleet? Is foiling in your future?
There's a couple of things to that. We're one designed in terms of the hull, but not in terms of the rigs. We've got rig height restrictions and pole end restrictions. So there is development in the rigs continually. There's talk about maybe there's too much development. You know, maybe we want to pull that back and actually have more of a one design outlook, maybe just with a second rig. That's under discussion, and the other thing in discussion is, everyone's crazy about foiling these days, so we'll take a look at that. We've got some foils in construction at the moment, and we'll trial it. Will it work? Will it not work? Is it our future? I think our view is, well, why don't we just have a look at it? It's the responsible thing to do. Will it add anything to what we're doing at the moment? Well, that's to be debated.
Well, it is to be debated. Who knows the answer to that one? But look, Simon, it's an amazing event, an amazing fleet, as you said, pretty much unique. And you've had an up and down regatta yourself, but just briefly, what are your hopes for these last 2 days?
Just to get a bit of self-respect back. It's been a tough week. It doesn't take much. You don't sail the boat flat enough. You miss a ley line. Every moment you make a mistake, you lose 3 or 4 boats. So if we can just have 2 error-ridden races, we'll be back in the front and happy with that.
Or error-free, maybe.
Is that what I said?
Yeah, almost, so close.
Okay.
Simon, thanks so much for your time today, and look, we'll be live from the Camera Cat at 2:30 for race 8, sponsored as today by Speg. See you out there. So not long till a race start, but actually on board the Camera Cat early, beforehand, if you know what I mean. I've got Jono Whitty with me. He is the boss of Aeromedia. Jono, there's a lot going on this Camera Cat.
There certainly is, Mark. It's always very busy on this boat because it's such a small boat and a confined space. But
how did it all start? How did your journey start? How come we've got where we are?
it started back in 2016 when we were the only drone company to get approval to film during the Hobart. And from there, sort of John Winnie approached me saying that, Jono, why don't we try and do drones for the 18-footers? And so once we started doing that, then we started finding more and more cool ways to showcase the boats.
And now you do Aeromedia does a lot more than just 18-foot skiffs, doesn't it?
Yeah, Aeromedia is predominantly a drone company, and we sort of migrated more into live production. So we do the big boat challenge for the CYC, a lot of blue water starts and other regattas around the harbour, but the 18-footers is a core place to get the equipment and the technology working really well.
Now, apart from a drone and apart from some gyro fancy cameras like the one behind me, just talk us through what all the people are doing on board this pretty busy Camera Cat.
So we have 3 commentators. We have Jimmy, the boat driver, then we've got Mark, you're the anchor man, then we've got in the middle, we've got usually a guest speaker, and then towards the back of the boat we have Chits, he's the director, and then we've got Pat, he's a Ronin pilot, and then we've got Lara as the safety manager who keeps an eye on the drone for CASA regulations, and then we've got Dylan at the back here who does all the drone flying, does a bloody good job as well.
Yeah, the drone, everybody talks about the drone stuff. There's a lot more to this than just a drone, but you're a pilot by background, aren't you? So the flying aerial part of this is pretty powerful.
Yeah, Sydney's quite a tricky place to operate in. It's called Romeo 405. It's restricted to only float planes, helicopters, and now drones. And yeah, every time we fly here, we have to put a document form into CASA, and they review it, and we do a risk register and a safety management system. So right now, we're just doing a takeoff with the drone, and you'll see the launch here. And yeah, so the drone really has brought sailing to a new heights.
Yeah, it's made it clearer from seeing the start lines to seeing the action. And of course, sometimes our problem with the Camera Cat is keeping up with these skiffs. Drone's a bit quicker than a Camera Cat, isn't it?
Yeah, the drone does around about 40 knots or 35 knots. And it really sort of allows the Camera Cat to just stay as a stable platform to film the boats at low level, and the drone sort of does all the fast pace shots.
Well, look, Aeromedia doing an awesome job. John, thanks for all the commitment you and your team put into this thing. Best of luck, and we're going to get ourselves back onto the racetrack, live from the Camera Cat at 2:30. Don't miss a thing. Skiff fans in Sydney, Skiff fans all over the world, welcome to the penultimate day of the 2019 JJ Giltinan Championships from Sydney Harbour. It's a little grey, it's a little overcast, but there's plenty of breeze for sailing. We're going to be starting on time is our expectation. Today's race sponsored by SMEG, and it's going to be a challenging one because 15 knots is the forecast, and it doesn't quite feel like it's 15 knots now. We're in an unusual place, Jimmy, aren't we, today? This race course looks like one we haven't seen all regatta. Tell us what the story is for today's race course.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, today we're on the southerly course. We're starting, we get to start down in Athol Bay, just below the zoo. Then the guys will work their way over to Clark Island, where they'll turn the mark and big long run all the way down to Middle Head to Obelisk Bay. They'll round the mark there and work their way back up around Shark Island for a pretty tight little run back down here into Athol Bay. From here they'll work their way again back over to Clark Island, another big long run down to Obelisk Beach, and then working our way back up to Shark Island, down to Athol Bay, and then finish over near Clark Island in front of the club.
It always sounds like a long course, doesn't it, when we read it out that way? But that's because it is a long course, Jimmy.
It is quite a long course, and that run from over here at Clark Island down to Obelisk. The boys and girls will definitely be feeling it in their legs.
Yeah, so today, race 8, just one more day to go tomorrow. 9-race series. There's only one discard. We had a day off yesterday. That was Friday in Sydney. Of course, as often happens on day offs, it was 20 knots of northeasterly and brilliant sunshine. Today, a very different story. And today, with me in my guest slot, we've got Adrian Cahalan, the legend that is Adrian Cahalan. Adrian, as well as being an 18-foot skiff sailor, a very successful one from a few years back, I'm sure you don't mind me saying. Since then, the marine world is your world, isn't it? You still are on the top big boats on the navigation circuit, as well as many other aspects of marine life. Just briefly tell me, what's your fondest memory of the skiff scene?
Well, I think my fondest memory would definitely be racing at high speed, rounding those marks, just the sheer exhilaration of a very fast kite ride down the harbour.
We're going to get back to you and ask you what it was like in your era, but at the time you were one of the top 3 skiff sailors of your generation. Looking forward to hearing all about that. For now, let's just check in with what happened back on Thursday. We had 2 races on Thursday. We had a top outstanding boat, which is ASCC from New Zealand, and we had a chance to talk to them on Thursday after the race. Let's cross over to Josh Perevsky and see what he had to say about his performance on Thursday. So we're back in the boat park. Races 6 and 7 have concluded, and today with a first and a second, Josh Perevsky, ASCC, fantastic result, great day for you guys, went pretty well.
Yeah, it was a bit better than the rest of our regatta. You know, we started with a bit of confidence and managed to pick the right side of Shark Island a couple of times. So, you know, it's always pretty good when you make the right calls, and keeping the head out of the boat and looking for the breeze was the most important thing today, I think.
And it seemed like it was as easy to get it right as get it wrong. Very few boats got it wrong every time, and you boys pretty much nailed it.
Yeah, the second race we were at the pin and there was quite a big left-hand shift, like in a minute to go. And we realised that quite early, luckily, and we managed to port tack most of the fleet. And then from that point, it was a little bit easier than the first race because you had a bit of a jump on everyone. And then, you know, it was just all about linking the pressure up and getting to the top mark.
Now, some of the boats here talk about, you know, when you're supposed to go left or right at Shark Island, there's not really a playbook. But as far as you're concerned, how did you make your judgment calls today?
We were just really looking for the most breeze and judging by our angle as we were heading towards the island. But, yeah, first speed, both races, the left paid, and then second beat, the right paid. So who knows what if you can buy into that. But, you know, just looking for the most breeze is the easiest option, I think.
And in terms of who else was fast out there today, who else was causing you trouble?
I think everyone's had their moments. You know, the German guys were smoking us for the second race for most of the race, and you know, Honda did a really good comeback in that second race and found themselves really high on port coming across. So, you know, Honda was pretty good, and I guess everyone had their moments.
And the top boats, as usual, got to the front. As you said, you mentioned the German boat, that's Marine Pool from Germany. They had a top day today.
Yeah, they really sailed well, and they, you know, were linking up the pressure and found themselves, well, they obviously backed themselves and ended up at the front. But yeah, everyone seemed to, all the Aussie boats seemed to come back at the finish, and every time we looked back, it was winning group closing in or Smeg, you know, pretty close. So good racing.
Well, a great day today, Josh. Congratulations, a fantastic performance. A 1 and a 2 day like today. I'm sure you're proud of that performance. And day off tomorrow, and you're back at it on Saturday.
Yeah, back at it Saturday. We'll see what happens, but yeah. Good to have a good result for once.
And you're back in this.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. 2 more races, so we'll be there.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Remember, there's no race on Friday if you're watching this live today, and we're back in the boat park on Saturday, 2:15 live, 2:30 from the camera cat. Look forward to seeing you then. Goodbye from the boat park. Yeah, so a great day from ASCC on Thursday, but the overall story of the regatta, as everybody knows by now, is Honda are well poised to win this championship, but they've still got a little bit of work to do. They've got to sail well either today or tomorrow, or probably both. That's what they'd like to do. Today, though, weather-wise, luckily we've got a weather expert with us, and because Adrian, amongst her other talents, is as a part of a navigator of a top pro boat, Adrian, they all ask questions to you, don't they, about the weather? What's it going to do, Adrian? When are we going to get there? All that kind of stuff. Today, what is it going to do? What is your view about today's weather on the racetrack?
Well, today's weather, it's a southerly, and it's forecast around about. Actually, the local forecast said 15 to 25 knots, so that will have caused a bit of angst in the boat park. But it's really, I think, on the models, I had a quick word, heard from Roger Badham today, 13 to 14 knots average. So in some of the puffs, you could get up 16, 17 knots, and in some of the light airs, it's 10 knots. So, but from due south, so there'll be a little few shifts left and right. And that'll be kind of the key today, is picking those pressures and those tiny little shifts. Actually, this, and even talking to legends on the land like Trevor Barnes and stuff, everyone will tell you that this southerly course is one of the hardest ones to pick.
And we've got a bit of rain right now, light rain, luckily, for the cameras and technology. What does the rain mean? When the rain comes, does it mean a shift? Does it mean pressure up, down, or what could we expect?
Yeah, well, at the moment on this forecast, what you probably see is when you get those little cells, if they're really noticeably dark and windy, then it'll be a big shift to the west. Less so, it's a little shift to the west, so you'd be looking for a little west on that south, a little southwest. So that's what it would be. See, Thursday was different because it was a sou'easter shifting east, so it was a much bigger, more persistent shift to the east, and that's when you saw those guys in on the left in that race go well on the east. But today, I think it'll just be left or right of south. Today, south, round about 14 to 15 knots.
Thank you for that, Adrian. We'll keep checking in on the weather as we go. It's going to be critical on a course that really covers, Jimmy, such a lot of the harbour, this course. It's not just up down. We kind of go up a bit, we go across a long way, and then we do a bit of up down stuff. But we're seeing kind of all parts of Sydney Harbour today. Yeah,
going to be a great tour of Sydney Harbour. So I know people are tuned in to watch the sailing, but you'll definitely get to see a lot of Sydney Harbour and their foreshore today as we're cruising around.
And you'll see a lot of spectator boats too.
Absolutely. Today, Saturday's traditionally a lot busier day than the Sundays, and we've had it pretty easy during the week with not too many spectator boats out, so it's back to all eyes out of the boat today for us as well as the guys sailing. They'll be looking out of the boat for obviously other boats racing, but also for the breeze. For us, it's just looking out of the boat for other boats that are moving around, and we've got a great big cruise ship in behind the start line where we are at the moment, Mark, and the bottom mark's supposed to be down in this area, so that could play into it. I know it did a couple of years ago I think it was a southeast course where they had to go down to Robertson Point, which is the next bay down from where we are currently. But so there's plenty for the guys to play for here today, and plenty of things that can really affect their day one way or the other. And then of course you've got the Manly Ferry goes back and forth every half hour just to add to the mix.
Just to add to the fun. We've been talking, Adrian, all week about the safety issues of sailing on the harbour. We've had some issues. We've had one boat got redressed for damage. Safety and liability on the water, that's kind of part of your world. You're obviously a trained lawyer. That's how you started out in the commercial world, and then you flicked into full-time pro sailing. But I know you've still got half a foot in the legal world, haven't you? How did that kind of joining up of the marine world, of the legal world, how do you see that?
Well, one of the things about sailing adding footers is that they're fast on the harbour. You've got to be making decisions well in advance of when you get to that point. And having said that, that's where 18-foot skiffs was such fantastic training for the big multi-hulls, because you learnt to make decisions at speed, under pressure in advance. And out here, that's one of the things here. I noticed in the sailing instructions that you've got to have $10 million liability for third-party liability, because it's there is a lot of traffic out here. It's Saturday afternoon. There's a lot of club races, and not everybody sailing is an 18-foot skiff sailor. You've got a lot of little boats, so you've really got to keep your eyes out of the boat for these racings on Saturday afternoons, as any day.
It is looking hectic, that's for sure. I can see a laser fleet dead up Winterbus, and there's all manner of cruising boats. Well, we've had the 5-minute gun. You might have heard that just in the background. So the next flag is going to be the 4-minute gun. So we'll try and get you an accurate time clock on the screen. But as we said before, do take it with a small pinch of salt. We do our best to line the time clock up with the starter signals, but it's not always perfect. But I'll give you a good check on the seconds, and we'll try and get a camera on the flags. You'll see the flags move. You might even hear the siren too. 10 seconds to go to the 4-minute gun. And now it's 5 seconds to go. Get ready to press your own personal watches at home, wherever you are, as we get ready for the 4-minute gun. There she goes. 4 minutes to go for the start, the first go at starting. Well, this could be, we might get away cleanly first start. We'll have to see. There were, of course, 3 goes at starting for the race 2 days ago. We noticed, Adrian, that after nearly a week of nobody pushing the start line. In fact, quite a lot of sag in the middle of the line, people being conservative, that everybody got a little bit overly punchy on Thursday, and we had to have several cracks at starting. But getting trigger happy in a skiff is understandable when you've got a lot of boats around you, and of course just 2 races to go in this World Championship. And you remember those days? It was a few years back. When was your last year of you racing skiffs?
My last year was 93, actually. And
does it feel just like yesterday, or you kind of look at these boats going another era?
Oh, no. We had 18-foot wings then, and we had 3 rigs, much bigger rigs. It was fantastic. So, but the people are still, same people are still around. A lot of the crew's a lot younger, but, generally in the boat park you see a lot of faces, and we're often out here on Saturday afternoon watching. Still very much part of the 18-footer community, or skiff community in Sydney. But just looking down at this start line, it's a lot smaller than it was the other day. So there's going to be they're much more restricted by room on the southerly course. So I think it's going to be quite a tight bunching up today, which will make it a bit more difficult. I think there'll probably be less sag in the line today, just because of the shorter line.
Yeah, it is a lot shorter, isn't it? With this, obviously, there's a piece of land. There's Bradley's Head in there. If you head off on starboard from the left end of the line, you're probably going to have to tack for land before anything else. So we don't often have that situation, but we always do pretty much with this course. So maybe a slightly shorter line. It might take more than one go at starting, but well, we'll have to see. One thing we've seen all through the series is Honda Marine, very conservative starting, and then pressing the boat speed button and usually getting themselves out of usually a fairly conservative start. I don't think they've said that on interview, Jimmy, a few times, haven't they? That they're consciously trying to keep it clean off the start line. That's fine if you're quick, but if you're not quick, that doesn't work too well.
And also today, sorry, Jimmy.
Right,
also today, there was a lot of deliberation which rig to go, first rig or second rig.
Was that?
Do you
think they were right to? It just felt to me big rig, but what's your view?
Well, as I understand it, the rig range goes up to about 15.
Yep.
So there was some who were rigging for the 16, 17, or some people rigging for the 10, and there was a couple of boats that went second rig. And that'll play out here on the start line. That'll make it a lot more difficult for those guys getting second rigs. So you might see the smaller rigs head off just to get some clear air, actually.
So we're right on the line right now. We're just over 2 minutes to go till the start. You can see right behind us there is that massive cruise liner. Just a quick word about that, Adrian. Is that going to make any difference to the wind? I know it's to leeward of the start line, but is it so big that you get any kind of bounce back there?
Well, I wouldn't get too close to it, but it's you've just got to just keep it in mind, really. One of the things, you've also got Clark Island up there at the top mark. The thing about Sydney Harbour, it's very geographically.
1 minute gun.
And especially under 15 knots, the wind tends to mould around the headlands a bit.
So a little bit of rain. The rain's slightly harder than it was before. This feels like, breeze-wise, Jimmy, softer than we were expecting, softer than you were expecting, maybe?
A little softer than what I was expecting. On the people that went little rig, I was speaking to a couple of them. A few of them have gone little rig because they feel that they can carry their spinnaker all the way down to Obelisk.
Interesting. So quite a tactical call, not really a wind strength call. 30 seconds to go till the start. Up at this end, Yandu are trying to push in hard on the committee. We can just see their bowsprit on that shot now on the drone. You'll see the story right across the line. There is the sag that we see quite frequently. There's that big cruise liner and the harbour bridge. Almost a beautiful shot, except it's a bit grey today. We've got about 15 seconds left. Down at the pin end, we've got a couple of boats pushing pretty hard, but the line looks just clear at the moment. Maybe the middle of the line are pushing it a little bit hard. It could be a clean start with 5 seconds to go. Winning group coming in super late at the committee, but you might see them. Top of your picture, there's the gun. Is that just one gun? Have winning group squeezed in at the starboard end. I'm not sure this is the right end to be, but they've made it up at this end. There we go. We've got an individual recall. And at the committee boat, winning group managed to find just a tiny gap just to windward of Yandu. There's the two winning group, winning family members making space for each other, and a couple of boats, Panasonic Loomis and Vintec and Finport, coming to a complete stop at this end of the line. We've got hull number 13, starter number 13 is the recall. We'll try and check out for you which boat that is that has to go back. That's the one boat that was over. But down at the pin end, the majority of the fleet and the majority of our overall leaders, apart from the winning group, are in the middle and the left. On the Marine look fairly conservative. In the middle left, Smeg, not such a great start, just a windward of them. Bingley to windward of them, but ASCC and Kitchen Maker seem to have made the best starts right down at the pin. And a little bit of rain is going to make the camera look a little tricky today, but we'll try and give you the best view we can of exactly where this race starts. It's lighter than we thought. There are boats here, Adrian, barely 3 stringing. We've got a probably 1.5 strings going on here right across the fleet. But I'm seeing hard left, ASCC, reasonably bow up, 3-stringing just about. In the middle of the line, the best of the boats is probably Honda Marine, what a surprise, maybe Asco, and out to the hard right, it does not look good. Winning Group need to be first or second, and they need to finish well ahead of Honda. Well, at this point, Winning Group, and I'd say everyone on the right of the start line, looking a little bit average.
Well, it'll be interesting. It's a outgoing tide today, so up to this mark, certainly there's and particularly just around this Bradley's area, there's a lot of chop, and you can see the boats are struggling. Some of the slower ones with the little rigs are struggling a little bit with that at the moment, just to keep up with the leads with the bigger rigs on.
So we can see from the gaps already between the fleet, we're only just a couple of minutes since we started. But Adrian, we talked about the weather before. I mean, you get what you get on Sydney Harbour, like all racetracks, but everyone has been expecting 15 knots. Well, you talked about the fact there's a dilemma about big or small rig. Well, how much breeze have we got here?
Well, I wouldn't have said there was more than 10 to 11 knots at the moment. And the thing is too, when you get these little cloud cells that go by, it might be great at the front of them because you get a little west shift and a bit more breeze, but you've still got to sail through the back of them sometimes, and that's when it gets very light and sloppy. I mean, it's all a lot to take in when you're also looking around and trying to sail the boat as well. There's a lot to it.
Out on the hard left, it's ASCC who managed to, they've got their own little private right-hander with a whole lot of pressure as well. Looking very good for them, but of course at some point they're going to have to tack. That righty might make it tricky to come back on port, but we'll see what happens. So we got ASCC, leader in the left, leader by actually quite a long way. The whole of the left are significantly advanced on the right side of the fleet. So if you start at the right end, you've got a lot of work to do unless something significant comes out of the right-hand side. That's the west-hand side of this race course. Big picture here, Adrian, do you see anything happening on the right? Is it going to come good for these guys, or have they got a world of pain on this first beat?
Well, I can see a lot of traffic up in the right there. One of the things about sailing on Sydney Harbour is sailing the traffic as much as the shifts, and the good guys will never make excuses for that. They will have done all those things perfectly, and that's something, because you can, looking up to that top mark now, you can see. But this is one of the things about the big rig and the second rig today, because some of the second rigs will be saying, oh, well, you know, when they get to the top mark with the smaller chute, they can set straight away.
Yep.
And with the big rigs, so that'll be interesting to see what happens, who goes for it straight off with the big rigs at the top mark.
So our leader ASCC on port, she's getting across, not the best angle, but she's decided to go while she's got some pressure. So ASCC gets out of that left corner where she's looking so good. She's crossing the rest of the fleet at the moment pretty comfortably. The boat she'll most want to cross is to get into Winning Group. She's well across the Winning Group, who are now pretty much in the middle of the beat, as are Smeg and Winning Group almost bow to bow, but ASCC at least 100 metres ahead of those boats. And where we are now, we're looking at Honda Marine, who definitely left middle is where they started, so they've done all right. They didn't get stuck on the right-hand side, but at the moment, a little bit of work for Honda Marine to do as well. And our most left-hand boat is the Kitchen Maker. These kind of conditions, I think Kitchen Maker might come good, Jimmy.
They're one of the guys that went little rig, believe it or not. So that may hurt them a little bit when we get moving here, when we start the long run down to Obelisk. So.
And you saw on camera just a second ago that large laser fleet just off my left-hand side. The wind mark that our boats have got to get round is the other side of that laser fleet. So Adrian talked about traffic management is a critical issue. Well, yeah, here we are. We talk about it every day. There you see it, up close and personal. Light, patchy, shifty. There's plenty on this racecourse to play for. Every time you look a little bit left and right, you see a little bit of localised breeze. But the one common factor is you've got to get through this traffic. You've got to find these puffs. And right now, ASCC are linking it all together pretty nicely. They're in the middle of the course, coming back towards the middle. They're past the laser fleet. Asco in pretty good shape. Honda not looking bad, but they've got a bunch of lasers to sail through. And then Brisbane 18-footers giving it a good show. From Germany, Marine Pool, not bad at all. And out of the right-hand side, we're still waiting to see Winning Group and Smeg produce some form.
ASCC have done a good job of just going up the middle a little bit here. Often you've got to be a bit careful putting yourself out on the corner, because it really does cut out your options, and especially in a breeze like this where the shifts are they're not persistent shifts, so you know you can be on the wrong side quite easily when you just get one little cloud and it flicks back the other way.
Jimmy, any update on that recalled boat? We got a number, didn't we? Do we have the
Boat number
committee?
13.
I had number 13, which is Rag and Famish Hotel.
That's who I heard him talking about
Okay.
on the radio, so I think that's who.
So there was an
Unfortunately.
individual recall flag. There was a number. That's Rag and Famish. A decent chance it's Rag. We're not sure if we saw them go back. We had our eyes on other things at the time. Up at the top mark for the first time. It's top mark, but it's not a downwind mark after that. It's a long reach, isn't it, Jimmy, after this? But ASCC coming in on this port ley line. They're going to have to do a 180-degree turn and reach back off in the opposite direction. But Joff Perebski, having got a 1-2 in the last race we did 2 days ago, he starts off today in much the same form. Started hard left, and as Adrian said, managed to find a way to get back to the middle, and he joined together the dots pretty elegantly. He's got a significant lead at this first mark. I think second round is going to be Asco, but Honda Marine, guess what? Our series leader, the boat that has got every chance of wrapping up this series, even today, with it to have an outstanding result, and Winning Group and Smeg to be in the back places. Honda Marine could win it today. Second round now, looks like it might even be Honda getting around this first. Just depends if Asco can pick a lay and use her starboard rights. There goes Asco's tack. You just see out the left of your picture. Honda Marine conservatively going for the duck. They might have had a crack at crossing them, but if you're a series leader, Adrian, you're going to be a bit conservative, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. Everything that Honda Marine's done in this race just smacks of conservatism, because they've got one more race tomorrow, but if they get a good top 5 today, then that puts them in such a good spot. So you always sail the end of the regatta so differently to the first couple of races.
Just in that instant there, do you think that cross was on for them, or was it always too risky?
Oh, I would have gone behind. I mean, you're in the top 3.
Of course.
Why end up in the courtroom if you don't have to?
So says the lawyer. Why go in the
A
courtroom?
lawyer saying she doesn't want to go to the courtroom. There's breaking news.
So Vintech, nice result from the Vintech boys. We haven't seen them for a little while. Could they go round in 4th position? Remember, our leader SCC is launched and gone about a minute and a half ago. Second round was Asco. And then, and she's lying, I think, in 4th or 5th overall, Jimmy. So Asco need a performance today if they want to get into the top 3, which they can do. Then Honda Marine, then Vintech, and next round it's Seatech. Finport, great recovery. They were stationary on the start line, Jimmy, weren't they? But Finport have found a way up this beat. Not quite sure how they did it, but nice job from those guys. And then Brisbane 18-footer, we hadn't seen them pretty much all regatta, apart from 2 days ago when they had one race when they were in amongst it briefly, but very good first beat from them. And Heinrich, after a stellar day 2 days ago, he's back at it again. He likes this light to medium stuff. And after them, it is Birkenhead Point Marina with two crew changes today. Marcus Ashley-Jones hasn't sailed all regatta. He's come on as guest helmsman. And John Walton has left. John Walton's on board. He's the only original crew member who stayed. Other 2 crew have had to leave. Both got flu. So let's hope that the last one survives the lurgy of the flu. That was Birkenhead Point Marine. And then Winning Group. We've been waiting for Winning Group. They go round outside the top 10. A lot of work to do to get ahead of Honda, but a lot of racetrack left. And after them, Royal Oak, 4 Pine, Armoury and Pittwater, followed by Merceline. Finally, we get to Smeg. Smeg and Winning Group, remember, are lying 2nd and 3rd overall. They have got to catapult themselves ahead of Honda Marine, who at this point are at least a couple hundred metres ahead of them. That's pretty much the story of where we are so far. A few more boats to go around this top mark. Yandu, Kitchen Maker, Bingley, they'll be disappointed with that. They'll be getting one of the last boats to go round. And Jared Simpson on Black Dog, Dalzotto, and finally Panasonic Lumix. That's your whole fleet at the first mark. We're going to try and navigate ourselves round and through this fleet and all the other fleets on Sydney Harbour and get you down to that reaching mark. And this next leg, typically speaking, Adrian, is a blasting reach. Hang on to your hats. Can you even make it in one? But it looks like today it's a fluky little light airs jibing leg.
Yeah, and traditionally too, as you get down the harbour in these southerly breeze, often the wind lifts you. So you may end up seeing them doing a few more jibes down there into Obelisk. But I would imagine Smeg and Winning Appliances will be pretty disappointed. But, they're Smeg going down, they've got 2 strings, they look comfortable. They've powered up quite nicely. They look like they've already caught up a couple of boats just in that very short period of time.
You just saw just then the Honda Marine on the drone shot. We're just back on board the camera cat. Honda Marine got a bit of a letdown there. Clips on starboard still. That's an Asco nicely on starboard. ASCC made a decision to jibe away, get into that low lane. Quite a bold manoeuvre for the leaders, but we've noticed ASCC kind of sailing, seat of the pants, if you like, just doing what they want to do, not caring too much about the fleet. What do you reckon about that manoeuvre?
Well, it's interesting what tactic downwind you're going to do here, because for a while there back in the day when I was around, you know, so like the Americans, the McKee brothers came in and sailed downwind, a very different style. You know, they didn't ramp it up and put 2 people on the while. Sometimes they just used to have 1 person out and sail much more VMG towards the bottom mark. But, you know, it's very difficult because you've got to take into account what fleet's around you as well as where the next gust's coming from.
And we're in amongst the middle of the peloton here. Winning group in Finport, just getting rolled a little bit by a whole group behind, just coming up with a new breeze. It's a little kind of sickening when that happens, but they're well positioned for when this puff gets to them. So the leaders are still ASCC, who drived off, they're well to leeward. Then Asco and Honda Marine are next in line, well to windward of ASCC, right down the distance. The group we're with here that you're seeing on screen is really the beginning of the peloton. It's quite tightly grouped. Birkenhead Point Marina with a new crew, Vintech, Seatech, Finport, and Winning Group have done a really nice job to kind of break out of the middle of the pack and join this peloton downwind speed from Winning Group. We've seen that all week, Adrian. I'm not sure how much of the racing you've had a chance to see, but every time we see Winning Group going downwind, they seem to be overtaking.
Yeah, well, I'm just in Finpoint and Seatech here. You've got a battle of the 12-foot skiff sailors, so we'll see their different styles, how they approach it.
Alex Failing still likes to go in a 12-footer.
Yeah, Alex is very successful with his 12-foot skiff. He's won the Inter-Dominions in the last few years a couple of times. And Charlie Gundy on Finport is one of the new up-and-coming 18-footer sailors that have come out of... I mean, Sydney Harbour's got such a great pathway into the 18s with all the 12-foot skiffs and the 16s. So, yeah, we've seen that with Yvette. The 16, she's coming through the 16-footers. So
Yvette on quarter-mean clothing, yeah.
That's right. And so it's I mean, they always say about 12s, once you can sail the 12, you can sail anything. So they're much sought-after crew on the 18s because they step right in and they know how to do it straight away.
And you've been spending a bit of time in 12s in recent years, haven't you?
Yeah, I saw my boat just about a year ago down at the local club. They're such great boats, and they're not restricted by rules, only just the length of the boat, so you can build or the rig as high as you want, have as many as you want, and the only rule is that you don't have any wings and a weight limit on the hull.
So navigating maxes to 12-foot skiffs, you kind of can't quite make your mind up, Adrian, can you?
It's lots of fun to be had.
Broad set of skills, that's for sure. So we're with Honda Marine Series leader, and it is light and tricky. It feels a little bit like it was it 2-3 days ago, Jimmy? We've kind of had this sort of overcast, southerly airflow, bit of rain, very shifty, very puffy, and it seems like it's all over again. One thing we know in these conditions, ASCC seem to pick their way through nicely, and Honda just seem to have a bucket load of boat speed.
Yeah, these two boats, Mark, are just they just show a different set of skills compared to the other guys. And when it does get light and fluky, these two manage to just extend away from everyone and make life, or make sailing these boats look very easy, and I can assure you it's not. Most of the rest of the fleet, they're up pretty high from where I thought they'd be, but I guess with the breeze going a little bit further right with that rain squall and so forth, will make for a long day, but they've still got quite a fair way to get down this harbour. Like, we're basically going down to the heads is how far down.
It's a lot. It's like an offshore race, isn't it? Well, we've got Adrian with us, so we'll be fine. We won't get lost.
We're right on here, I'll tell you.
So you see him for the drone shot. We're just down at sort of surface level just for a second on Honda Marine. The drone shot you looked at before, Asco looked like they were very advanced on ASCC. Well, they are bow forward on ASCC, but they are a long way to windward. They're hoping that this gust will just take them all the way down to ASCC's line. The leaders are really still ASCC on camera now, and Asco to windward are probably marginally ahead if they can get the letdown, and Honda Marine behind them. But the group to windward, there's a big group to windward, a solid 100 metres to windward. They've got a breeze all of their own, and that group is Birkenhead Point Marina, Vintech, Seatech, Finport, and Winning Group. Winning Group, probably the crucial boat in that group. They're 100 metres to windward, in fresher breeze, 2 wiring, with a bit of pace. But of course, at some point, they're either going to need a monster letdown, or I guess, Adrian, they're praying for a shift and a drive to join up with that leading group. What do you think the chances are of one of those two things happening?
Well, I think coming up here, they're just off Nielsen Park, which traditionally, which is on the south side of the harbour, can get quite light in here, but they're all following down these little lanes of breeze, and the key is just to make sure you jibe in those little lanes, because there's quite a lot of chop in the harbour at the moment, and as you know, a bad jibe and if you come out of that jibe with just not quite enough breeze, you lose about 4 or 5 boat lengths so quickly. but the groups are all coming together now with Honda Marine just coming out, who took the bottom lane there on the north side of the harbour.
Yeah, that group did drive over. We're just on Winnie Group now, the back of that next group, but not only just at the back of it, coming into them all the time. So the group decided the letdown wasn't going to happen. They have drived across, not on a brilliant angle, but not a terrible one. They're churning a little bit of what looked like their advantage just to rejoin the leaders. And back at the front, we can see that ASCO are just about to drive to fall down to ASCC's lines. ASCO didn't manage to roll and soak, and they need to get down to ASCC's line. So ASCC are still going to continue leading. There they are crossing ASCO on camera. Not by much. You're seeing it as clearly as, probably more clear than we are down at surface level, but what's that, 3-4 boat lengths by the time the drive's completed. Super close between ASCC leading, ASCO from Australia in second in today, and Honda Marine next back, also jibing, wanting to keep in contact with the leading group. And then behind them, it's that group of Finport, Winning Group, Vintech, Seatech, and finally Birkenhead, Point Marina. There's not much between that. Just further back, just to keep you in track with what's going on, the key boat Smeg is probably another 2 or 3 boats back, but more importantly for her, probably a minute or further away, quite a big distance. But Jenny, I reckon today is the kind of day when stuff could go inside out and back to front. I think you can come back from a hopeless position. Clearly Michael Coxon on Smeg, today's sponsor, will really be hoping that that is possible, but if it's ever possible, today's probably that day.
Yeah, and Coco and the boys on Smeg, they're one of those guys that generally, if they do get back in the fleet a little bit, can just pick their way through. We've seen that early on in this regatta. It is going to be a days of the haves and have-nots. All they've got to remember is just don't go where the wind ain't.
That is a very true word indeed. So up at the front, you're just seeing Honda Marine approaching ASCO. Honda Marine have made a gain into ASCO, no question at all. They're right in contact now with the 2 leaders. As ever, they've got this usual champions blend, Adrian, of boat handling, boat speed and positioning. It's a pretty hard combo to counter, isn't it?
It's interesting because when I was talking to some of the crews on the beach today about what they thought was the winning formula here, I mean, obviously Honda's the one that showed at the moment that they're at it, but one boat in particular said that they didn't think they were that much faster. They felt that their advantage really just came from them with the 5 years together, that they just weren't making any mistakes. So it's so smooth in all their manoeuvres, but when they lined up one-on-one with them, they weren't actually any faster.
So that's probably what great boat handling that leads to a speed advantage through the manoeuvring.
Yeah, even, if you do one jibe and your wing even touches the water, you lose 2 boat lengths. So it's just so much finesse in these boats about, the wins and losses, they just translate into minutes, not seconds.
And when you were sailing skiffs, you used to sail pretty much full time, didn't you?
Pretty much full time. We had 18-foot wings. We had 3 rigs, and we were on the circuit. So we were we were doing 120 races or something, and we were training all week. So we lived and breathed them. The guys in these setup don't have that opportunity, but it was intense, but very rewarding.
And your favourite conditions?
Oh, I love really light. I love really light, or so a light big rig, 2 strings, and black third.
I've got a feeling that means windy.
Windy.
Very, very windy.
Yeah, because it was very hard with our weight, to be competitive in those second rig type conditions.
So when it moves to pure boat handling, you're back in it again.
And it was exciting.
Well, here we are with ASCO on camera. There's a cruise boat just going past us in the opposite direction. And
that's not our onboard stereo.
Yeah, that's not. It's a pretty good sound system they got on board that boat. But luckily, James Doran on ASCO not getting distracted by that. Harry Bethwaite at the front and Trent Barnabas in the middle of the boat, keeping his weight ahead in the front and to leeward. They are just rolling along here. They are somewhere between second and third. Honda Marine got a bit of a puff to windward. You can see Honda rolling them. But Honda Marine, if they jibed, would they cross? Probably not on port. So technically, ASCO are in third, but being threatened by Honda. Out in front, you can see ASCC's White Spinnaker. Jimmy, not too far for ASCC till they find a ley line into this downwind mark.
Yeah, they got 2 jibes to get down to this bottom mark, but they're not far off their first jibe. Just off camera, Mark, I've just had a look in my little review mirror. I've got a blue spinnaker coming at me pretty quickly of the Birkenhead Point Marina.
Birkenhead Point Marina looking competitive. We know that as a boat is a fast boat in these conditions. They've shown plenty of boat speed, a couple of crew changes, but they brought in Marcus Ashley-Jones as a top skiff sailor.
Gun for hire.
Pretty good, yeah. Done a bit of Volvo action too, but had a bit of time out of skiffs, but maybe sometimes a little bit of time out. I think Marcus sailed season after season, a bit of time out. I don't know, I think probably a bit of freshness is never a bad thing at all. So Marcus Ashley-Jones new on the helm, and I think he's got Geronimo as his crew.
Another handy replacement.
Joining John Walton, so, you know, a real nice little crew setup. Step into a fast boat, happy days. If you got that invite, Adrian, why didn't, in fact, you get that invite? You should be helming that boat, shouldn't you? Birkenhead Point Marina? You up for another go in the skiff?
The look on the face.
I'm best on the camera cat here today. But it'll be interesting coming into this, Mark, what way on the harbour upwind ASCC decide to go, actually, whether they tack straight on the mark or whether they decide to work this northern shore. They'll be against the tide going up to the top mark.
Yeah,
so,
they will. Look, she's going to cross a motorboat by not much. You're about to see the motorboat come into your shot just now. She's going to cross that horrible wake, which is going to make a huge, there's the motorboat on the left of your picture, cross it just. Other boats are going to have to get through that wake. That is going to be a challenge for them. ASCC dropping down at the bottom mark for the first time, dropping pretty early, conservatively. When they turn this corner, they've got to go back through that wake. That won't be much fun at all, but they are going to be clear ahead. Not quite as big a lead as they had at the top mark, but still pretty healthy. First round the bottom mark.
I just can't how calm they are on board. Like, you know, that Josh is just looks like he's just out for a casual Sunday sail.
He does. Look, guess who's got round second? Honda Marine. Great job by Honda Marine. They were third at the top mark, but they were a long way back from ASCC, and they had a lot of work to do with the boats around them. Well, they popped out of that group, and well, they got plenty of company with ASCO just behind them and Finport joining in. For sure, Finport, remember, were dead in the water at the start gun at the right end of the line, so they had a miraculous recovery on that beat. And after a disappointing regatta for Finport, Keegan York and his crew put it together so far in this light and tricky day, Saturday, penultimate day.
And Mark, those waves, just like where the guys had to jibe, like it really unsettles the boat and the crew, and you know the crew could have easily overreacted there and jumped onto the new weather wing and capsize the boat into weather. You know, in skiffs, ideally, you don't want to be jibing on top of waves. You want to be jibing running down a wave if at all possible.
Birkenhead Point Marine in trouble here. Yes, Marcus having to get his bow off. Yeah, he just didn't have enough jib to lean against. They turned a bit of a sharp corner. They were stopped in irons, and that's never a pretty situation. That's just a crew that haven't sailed together, Jimmy, isn't it? That's all it is.
That's all that is. And, you know, Marcus is only out here to have, like, you know, I know he's very, very competitive, but, you know, he'd be out here to have a good laugh and have a bit of fun and stay away from the party out on Doz's boat just to give himself half a chance for tonight.
Just looking upwind here with ASCO, they've managed to actually get 3 strings and hook into a little right-hander there. ASCC, nobody's tacked around, only one boat's tacked around the mark at the moment, but certainly ASCO just didn't seem to have that boat speed downwind. They really lost quite a lot of places down there. So, and I did notice in that downwind leg that they had 1 crew member to leeward, whereas the other boats were just sitting up to, you know, just had 1 in on the wing and 2 out. So
different angles.
Different angles, different style of sailing, and it just didn't seem to quite pay off.
Well, the key boat that needs to join the leading group is coming down the mark. Smeg on camera now. So Smeg is getting closer, bit by bit. They haven't joined the group, but they're making up the delta. They're at a nice puff now. Bit of a boat handling test for them. I'm sure they'll be up to it. They're leaving the kite drop late. Well, they need to do that. They're in a gust. That's good news for them. Then Michael Coxon needs to get this kite away and get up this beat fast as he can, rejoin the leading group. So at about 10th position or so is Smeg, just ahead of him, Armory and Pittwater, going a little bit better today. But up front, ASCC, we're looking in the far distance on port, are crossing all the boats that went round behind them, but not by much. And out on the slight right-hand side, ASCO and Honda both looking pretty healthy. And as Adrian said, only 1 boat has tacked away so far. That's Finport, rolling the dice, Jimmy, and maybe just wanting a bit of space to use the boat speed that they undoubtedly have got, albeit it's been locked away for most of this regatta.
Yeah, but I think it's a big roll of the dice, but just watching when Smeg went around the mark, then they were very bow up. You know, the breeze has gone, I think, a little bit further to the right again. Yeah, I think it's a brave move to sort of come around, unless they were really getting gas or bad air off one of the other skiffs. I probably would have punched out at least out somewhere near the Sound Pigs or something before I looked at going back.
Adrian, what do you reckon about the tack off to the right?
Well, when you come down into this part of the harbour, there's 2 shipping channels, and on either side there's quite deep water, and then there's shallow water. We're sailing upwind with the tide against us, so one of the questions is, do you go and work the northern shore, or do you go and work the southern shore? And at the moment, as Jim says, it's a little bit of a right-hand shift. So what people are electing to do is take that right-hander and head over to the southern shore. Now then they'll try and hook up in under Nielsen Park and get out of the tide. But the only problem up there is that you can run out of breeze a little bit. So it's one of those things that you just have to call on the run. And the guys have made the call to work the southern shore here and try and tackle the tide up in the eastern channel.
And some of these boats going right into the Sound Pigs. Tell us about the Sound Pigs. What is it and how far in here can they go?
Well, the Sound Pigs is a little rock formation, and a rumour had it, I think, that the French used to bomb it, so it used to be able to see it above the water. One of those foreign nations that settled us did it. And so when you're in a big boat, you definitely can't go in there, and often in the sailing instructions, you're actually not allowed to go in there, so no one's going in there now, particularly not in the tides, but so you've got to stay out around the cardinal markers. But it's very much a tactical feature in racing, because you come up onto the very shallow water. That'll help tide-wise, and it's just one of those iconic things in Sydney Harbour. 4 cardinals, Sound Pigs, don't hit it.
Don't hit it. Marcus Ashley Jones will bugger to Point Marina, tacks right just shy of the rocks, and there is Simon Nern. We interviewed him earlier on. He's the Commodore of the 18-foot skiffs, and he's tacking much better performance than today. He's tacking the same line. Out to the right, I have to say, Finport not looking bad at all. There was one boat that tacked out hard right, that is Finport. She's crossing ahead of Honda Marine. She's made a massive jump. The hard right seems at the moment like it might, well, not might, it has worked. She's certainly leapfrog, whatever the right phrase is, but she's jumped forwards from the pack.
I won't hang around and have a beer with Keegan this afternoon, that's for sure.
So he's jumped ahead. Good job from Finport. Look, one thing we know, Adrian, is that Finport have had a lot of boat speed in the build-up to this regatta in pretty much all conditions, particularly with this big rig. But for some reason, maybe the JJ Giltinan complexity, 25 boats, etc., they just haven't strung this regatta together. But it doesn't surprise us to see them going fast.
Well, it's 9 races. It's a long regatta to put together over 9 days. You've got such a variety of conditions, 2 different rigs. And, and also just to be able to keep calm. In fact, there was a bit of talk on the beach whether the Kiwis were going to choke it today, and I think a lot of the Aussies were a bit bolshy about whether the Kiwis would choke it today, but it doesn't look like they are. They've just been so calm and collected in how they're just putting the series together.
Well, I think the Aussies are hoping there'd be some choking, but at the moment, no evidence of that. It's still a patchy, shifty, puffy, up and down day. Plenty up for grabs on this race course, and what's happening at the moment at the front, AFCC have still got their lead, but Finport have joined the party at the front. Finport into second position from, where were they, 7th, 8th, Jimmy, something like that at the bottom mark. Yep. Honda are still in 3rd, ASCO in 4th. Winning group went the far side of the Sound Pigs there, Adrian. Probably just sneaked their way around the eastern side. They are therefore the most left-hand boat going upwind, but so far the right seems to have been the most beneficial place to be. But we'll see how that plays out. We're all expecting them to end up off Nielsen looking for a bit of tidal relief. And
that's right, because you do have to make the decision when you do cross the tide to get over into that gap then between Shark Island and Nielsen Park. But it's interesting, all the traditional rivalries, because there's obviously the ones between the Australians and Kiwis out here, but interestingly, when speaking to a British team on the beach, all they wanted to do was beat the Germans.
Still going on.
So they were the Brits, Jared Simpsons from Black Dog, and they were very keen on beating Marine Pool.
And that's even before Brexit.
There's
a bit of history. There's a bit of form there. Anyway, the good news is we got one German boat here. Heineck was saying that he doesn't have a lot of competition in Germany. He actually has none. There's no other skiff, so he would be the German national champion in that case.
Yeah, it's great to see the international teams out here, and the heyday was in Sydney 2000 when we had the Olympics, and there were so many teams training out here for all different classes of boats. So we really encourage everyone to come out and enjoy the regatta, and when they can come to Sydney and sail the skiffs with us all.
And Honda Marine right close to us on the most right-hand side of the racetrack. We're just looking at Finport, who are in the middle. You'll probably see Honda Marine on the left-hand side of your shot appearing quite soon. And we are about a third of the way up this very, very long beat. Long way to go upwind on this leg. and ASCC still maintain the lead. In close proximity is Finport, that you can see on the right-hand side of your picture, and Honda Marine, who've just tacked onto starboard, going over to relocate with the two leaders, and then behind them it's ASCO, Marine Pittwater, looking pretty competitive today, coming up the middle of this beat. But SeaTech, Smeg are the most hard right boat now. Smeg also finding a way to wriggle up and join this leading group, and the winning group are out on the hard left. But as we get to Nielsen Park, we're expecting them all to approach Nielsen to look for tidal relief. That's when we'll get a really good indication of how well the left-hand side and the right-hand side has played. But so far it's looked like the right has been generally the better place to be. And Adrian, are you still expecting us to all join hands at Nielsen, or will you think it will be Shark Island?
Well, it's interesting in the terms of the breeze. The good news is that it has filled in quite nicely here to sort of 12, 13 to 14 knots. And that's then, and relatively uniformly across the race course. And that where it does make the decision so much harder, you know, to try and find those little gains and losses from that point of view.
Seeing quite a lot of low cloud if we look dead upwind here. What's your assessment of what's going to happen just in the next sort of piece of the race, maybe the next half an hour?
Well, the forecast is, once this all goes through, is it for the wind to ease slowly into the evening. So just got to hope that it actually stays in the 12 to 15 knot range for the rest of the race. Well, certainly the leaders would be hoping that, because that's where it can be quite unfair in the harbour when the wind dies and some people are disadvantaged by that through no fault of their own good sailing.
Yeah, generally speaking, the visibility getting a little bit worse, a little bit more rain, lower cloud approaching, but the pressure's still holding up, still solidly three-stringing. And alongside us here, we've got the winning group very close by. She's done pretty nicely. She's just had a cross with Honda Marine. Honda Marine, as we've seen before, they generally speaking sail conservatively, but also, Adrian, what we do see is they'll just go their own way when they want to. They've split left from the whole of the rest of the group. The winning group only crossed a couple of boat legs behind Honda Marine, so Honda Marine just a little bit, they'll be a little bit disappointed with that, I think. And
well, Winning Appliances has really just worked its way slowly back up the fleet here now.
Yeah,
so
from the hard left, actually, to our slight surprise, but maybe this last little piece, last few minutes, has played well for them.
Well, that's right. I mean, it's the thing is, if you do decide to back one side of the course, you do have to reconnect with the fleet at one stage. So you don't want to go right out to one side of the course so that you close off all your options. So they've sailed very smartly there. They've taken a little back, just back one side of the course, but then they've slowly stepped back up within the fleet and consolidated those gains that they've made early.
So we've got most of our leaders on starboard, as you can see, heading to the left side of the harbour. Right in front of us, ASCO and Winning Group. Bit of a speed test going on here. Winning Group obviously in an advantage position. To leeward and slightly ahead, they'll be making life pretty tough for ASCO here.
Yeah.
To leeward, you can see Honda Marine. They've just tacked back. They're the most left-hand boat of the leading group. And just up to windward is our leader ASCC, and still the boat in the hard right, the boat that loves the right-hand side, is Finport. We'll see how that plays out. So we've got Honda hard left, we've got Finport hard right, and in between this little boat-on-boat battle between Winning Group and ASCO, and just up to windward, the leader on the water of this race at the moment, still Josh Perebski on ASCC from New Zealand.
So Finport there, they've made the decision just to cross the tide once. They've worked the northern shore, and but they're looking a little soft in there. But we're starting to feel a bit of rain here as well. So whether that indicates a westerly shift for us, I'm seeing the air observations at Sydney Airport are 14 to 15 knots. So hopefully that'll stay fairly consistent for them, and Finport might get that advantage that they're looking for by staying right out in the right-hand side.
So our leader ASCC on the drone, and just to leeward of her, you can see that boat is Winning Group, who are definitely in amongst the leading group. Remember, up at the top mark, Winning were outside the top 10, probably in 12th or 13th, something like that. Smeg were even further back than them. And the question was, could these two boats get in contact and then do something about the key rival Honda Marine? At that point, it was very early days, Adrian, but it looked unlikely at that point, but it's already happened. Winning Group showing plenty of speed, plenty of tactical awareness on this upwind leg as well, and they've got in contact with the leading group without any question. They are level with Honda Marine. And Finport, the hard right boat, is not really relevant in the overalls. We'll look forward to see how they go today. Not a contender in the overalls. But Winning Group very much is. So are Smeg. And Smeg also making a pretty sensational recovery. She's not quite into this leading 5, but she's probably the best of the rest. And Jimmy, we're not even a third of the way through this race.
No, we're not. Haven't even completed one whole lap, so we've got a whole another lap to go. But the longer the race goes, better it is going to be for Smeg to try and work their way through and then get onto this pack. We're seeing 4 of the top boats really battling it out here, and I've just been watching intensely some of how close these crosses are between particularly the Winning Group, ASCO and Honda Marine. Is they're just really fighting for every inch, and then ASCC they've just stepped out a little bit further, probably put a bit more gauge on these boats that are battling it out. But that's what happens in racing. If you get tied up in your own little battle, generally the person that's not tied up in it, they get to leg it out a little bit.
Well, interestingly, ASCO just crossed in front of Winning then. We had Winning on shot for quite a lot of that last little bit, and they looked very comfortable. You could see the crew on the trapeze with their trapeze harnesses. They were adjusting their weight up and down. They're working very hard, and they're very, very smooth. Just minimal movement in the boat. The boat's perfectly flat. That's so important in skiff sailing that, see now there's just a little bit of a lead on there, but, it's just so important that you're smooth, and there's ASCO there now, who obviously just made a little gain. These boats, it's not just setting and forgetting and lying on trapeze there. A lot of what you can't see is all the minor adjustments, the tiny adjustments on the sheet, and that's just so important, particularly now that this little rain cloud that's just come down is quite puffy now, so the crews have to respond to that, and the best crews are the one who have that good technique to accelerate and decelerate with the minimum of disruption to the boat.
So ASCO tacking right off the rocks. You just saw that tack. That was the Nielsen Beach. And they had to tack, otherwise they'd be running hard aground. Not a great day to spend on the beach today, so there's no point doing that. Honda Marine tack right in front of ASCO.
So look at Finport there. So they did do well out in the right.
Yeah, Finport did do well. Cross Winning Group, and Honda Marine made a little gain just when they split to the right from Winning Group. That was all a couple of minutes ago. So there's just shifts, isn't there? At the moment, every time people take a little stab to the right, it seems to pay for them. But there's plenty up for grabs here. While all this has been going on, as Jimmy said, ASCC have been ignoring the drama and just trying to step their way up the beat. But ASCC have decided after the middle, the left is where they want to be. So on the left-hand side of this beat, well, we've got Finport right in front of us now that you can see, and just directly in front of them, crossing them, is Honda Marine and ASCO. No more than a boat length or two between those. The boat a little bit further projected. If you look just straight to the top of your screen, there's ASCC still on starboard. That's our leader. So the leading group at the moment have all decided now get to the left-hand side. Adrian, that's kind of what you were predicting. Use Nielsen for tidal relief. They're all ending up on one side.
Yeah, and I think too in this course it is very tricky. There's a bit of crystal ball about it. You ask the people who sail this course a lot, and they can be equally puzzled by it. But the main thing too is not to get discouraged. If you do get one that doesn't go your way, just chip away at it and get back into phase again and get back up there into Shark Island. And a couple of the boats now, we're looking here at Finport, who've decided to back the Nielsen side, the left-hand side. A couple of the other boats there, Honda and ASCO, they're going to hit the other side right onto Shark Island, so we'll see how that plays out.
So it's still a bit overcast. You can see the raindrops on the screen. We'll keep wiping that as often as we can without driving you crazy. And the drone is still within its sort of operating envelope, but there's a point at which the drone struggles a bit in the rain, but so far it's all good. Dylan, our expert drone pilot, one of the best in the world, he is flying the drone today, as he has all series. Thank you, Dylan, for all the sensational shots you've got us and for making sure we haven't lost a drone yet. Remarkable. Jimmy, we've got 3 drones, and as our club president, John Winning, said, you've got 3. You don't have to come back with 3 in the regatta. Push it, but so far Dylan's kept them all in one piece. Yeah,
Dylan does a great job back there. We had to go back and make him look good once the other day, though. Don't forget, right. Mark. He lost contact with the drone. Just I think that had to do with the weather that we were in. We were in similar weather, probably a little bit heavier rain. And so we had to duck back and try and get the camera cat underneath the drone and get the drone to land onto us instead of what Dylan does. He flies the drone back to the boat, and we have a drone catcher that catches the drone. So made for a very interesting moment for me, having to get in amongst the skiffs as well as try and catch a drone onto this. But Dylan does a fabulous job, and we're very grateful to be able to. The guys at Aero Media can help us out with that sort of stuff and get us the best of the best to fly these things.
So not in shot at the moment is Winning Appliances and ASCO. We're looking here at Honda, but interestingly, just for the on the race commentary there, that Winning Appliances seem to have got a little bit lost up that beat. They got out of phase and they've dropped out down behind ASCO there. So
doesn't take much, does it, Adrian? You were saying before, there's plenty. You've got to be patient. If you get one wrong, be patient. Wait for the next one. But Winning Appliances clearly out of phase just in the last couple of minutes, and all of a sudden, 100 metres plus they've lost.
They did, and they did too many tacks. They got caught out, probably caught a little bit out in the tide, and they've just got to settle back down again and just look for those lanes of breeze.
Of course, part of the problem is they kind of probably feel they've got to make something happen. They've got to be first or second, and they've got to be ahead of Honda Marine. Well, they made a great recovery for that first rounding, no question about that, but they'll be feeling they've got to find a way to get there quickly, and yachting doesn't quite work like that, does it?
It almost looked like they got back to where they needed to be, and then they relaxed.
Maybe that's right. They don't look. Sevi doesn't look very relaxed to me, but they need to make it happen. Well, they've got plenty of runway left. It could yet happen. They've got the speed, and they've got a lot of experience on board. Sam Newton, an America's Cup winner on the front, and obviously a multiple JJ champion himself, and Sevi Jarvin, a 7 times winner of this championship. He knows what it takes to win.
They've got the personnel, there's no doubt about that.
Staff looks good.
Yeah, that's right. It's actually, on a day like today, it's a tough job for the foreign hand. With this wind, it's piped in quite nicely now. We're starting to see these 16 knots that we were looking for, but it can be a lot of running in and out for the forward hand. So, and often it's the forward hand who does a lot of the looking around for the tactics. So if they're distracted jumping in and out, it's easy for the whole tactical strategy to go off the ball a little bit.
So on a wet and I was going to say windy-ish, medium breeze, 14-15 knots as per the forecast. Very flat water up Penrose Bay. Plenty of traffic. It's Woollahra Sailing Club, as a lot of you will know, is up in this top corner. So as usual, there's a moth fleet. Pretty good moth fleet, pretty high quality moth fleet. Sails out of Woollahra every Saturday and Sunday. We've got moths to navigate our way through. We've got this mark off Shark Island to go through. And then Jimmy, just remind us the rest of the course. So once we go around this YA yellow mark off Shark Island, which ASCC is about to do, to give us a quick run through on the rest of the track.
Yeah, so from here they run back down to where we started, down in Athol Bay, hopefully with a spinnaker. They may be too reaching going down there on this one with how far right the breeze went. Then they got to work their way back up to Clark Island, and then from Clark Island we run all the way down to Athol Bay again. And then down to Obelisk. I'll run down to Obelisk. I'm getting confused. They run down to Obelisk, then work their way back up here to Shark Island, and then down to Athol, and then they work up to the finish off Clark Island in front of the club. But Mark, and Adrian, just been looking at it. I think Winning Group and ASCO and Finport, they've sort of dropped back, and of course the boat of the moment, Honda, has legged it from that group. I think they've finished. The guys on Honda have said, okay, enough of playing with these guys, we're out of here, and just put the gas pedal on.
ASCC and Honda, absolutely right, have both stepped to ASCC. You can't expect them to. They didn't really have boats around, and they could pick the shifts as they wanted to. Honda have managed to find a way to wriggle away from the close attention of 3 or 4 boats and try and link up with ASCC. So 2 Kiwi boats in first and second. Honda Marine, our overall series leader and current champion as well, looking in great shape to repeat what she did last year and win this championship overall. But we have still got plenty of runway left, so let's not make any assumptions quite yet. Second round was Honda Marine, and approaching, well, Finport, ASCO and Winning Group, there's not a lot between them, but they are, Jimmy, as you said, there's a distance, isn't there? So they're not really close to Honda anymore. Now we've got probably 150 metres or so between the next boat round, which I think is probably going to be Finport. They're on port. Hopefully they're going to hopefully cross ASCO on starboard. It looks like they will do that just for now. So the 2 boats on port you can see is Winning Group and Finport.
They've had a good race, those 3 up that beat ASCO, Winning and Finport. Finport went right out to the right, Winning up the middle. ASCO, they joined up together in that run up to Shark Island, but there's not much in it when they actually go around the top mark at Shark, so it just goes to show you.
I think Smeg will be reasonably pleased with their performance at that beat as well. They are almost in contact now with this group. They need to hurry up and get on with it now, but they are moving forward in the fleet all the time. So the next boat round, third boat.
They've made enormous gains from bottom mark, Smeg.
Have they? Yeah, so much better. They've got a lot more work to do. They've got to get right up to the front, but so far they're doing all they can. So it was Finport followed by Winning Group and Asco, pretty much level. And then after that, it is going to be Smeg or SeaTech. There's very little between those two boats. Smeg going to try and cross SeaTech, which I think they will do. That'll make a big difference as well. It's another place made up. And what really, I guess, Smeg and Winning Group need is something like a 20-knot gust, or they need a hole or a ferry, or, well, the fact is, if those things are going to happen, it could happen here on Sydney Harbour. You know, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen here. So let's wait and see how this race pans out. Next round, as we expected, Smeg did get across SeaTech, and they will go round. It's then SeaTech, it's then Armbreen, and then it's Vintech. Anyway, we'll get back up to our leading group. There's Winning Group, as you can see, bang in the middle of your picture. Asco get that kite set, and the leaders are a little bit off in the distance. Finport just ahead, but the leaders, Honda Marine and AirCC, probably a good 200 metres or so ahead of them on a pretty similar line. So a bit of straight line speed needed by the chasing pack. And that big ferry you can see in the distance, that big white ferry, that is the bottom mark. That's where they've got to get themselves back to. But before that, they've got to get around Bradley's. And it doesn't take much of a puff here to make Bradley's a bit of a challenge. Adrian, is this a course that you sailed when you were sailing 18s, or
this southerly course has been around for a lot longer than I have.
So the tradition of the fleet says it's the same course that you used to sail. It's fantastic.
That's right, and one of it's that decision. Most people set up at Shark Island. It's not very often that you'd reach up and then set later, because chances are you'll make it down in one. Honda, who's not on screen, all the boats there seem to be lifting up quite nicely above the Bradley's Head, which is on the north side of the harbour. There's been a couple of days where you've had to flag the spinnaker around there, but you are going against the tide, so that doesn't help you because that pushes you down a little bit. But certainly from the point of view of Finport, they're making it quite easily now. So, and Asco and Winning, definitely, they seem to be getting a bit lifted actually.
So a little lighter probably, and a little bit lifted, and no one's going to have a drama on Bradley's.
No, so they'll end up jibing in. The question here is, of course, whether they go out to the left and hope to pull in a bit of a westerly shift that'll let them down into the bottom mark, or just go straight at it.
I've just picked up the bottom mark, Adrian. It's just below where on that cruise ship, right between the word Celebrity and Solstice, right smack bang there. So they're pretty much so on the lay. Where traditionally the mark's on the other side of the ferry, right? Like it's normally well and truly down in the bay.
So the ferry's affected the position, basically, Jimmy, is it? Because they couldn't put it where they normally would.
Yeah. As I said, it's normally further down in Athol Bay, and obviously with that great big cruise ship there, and just got.
Well, Finport are getting that gust there coming out of the south-southwest that we were just talking about, and the boats just in front of them, right up in the top of the shot there, they're sitting in with only one string out. So this is where Sydney Harbour can be cruel.
Yeah, exactly right. So we saw Finport just previously on picture. Now the drones move forward to the two leaders, and the breeze is much lighter for them. But looks like AFCC might be getting this puff. But what has happened there is Finport have come right up in to these leading two. So we said there was a big distance, like hundreds of metres. Well, there was, but not anymore. Finport is the boat that's bridged the gap, and they've accelerated somehow or other. They got the breeze, and Winning Group and Asco, remember those boats were pretty close together. Well, Finport has just managed to leave Asco and Winning Group completely, and has come right up to these other two.
So on ASCC, they'll be sort of looking to hopefully leave this spinnaker drop a little as late as they can. They dropped it early at the other bottom mark, being conservative, but they don't have that luxury anymore now. They've got everybody breathing down their neck, and they'll be thinking now about which side of the harbour to go, whether to tack straight away around the mark, or whether to head to just round up and keep going straight out to the sort of southwest of the course.
And which way would you go, Adrian?
I'd just go where there's breeze, so I'd just round this bottom mark. I'd just tack over, just head out towards Clark a bit, and then try and find and certainly watch what the guy behind you or girl does behind you, and just put a loose cover, because you don't want to back aside of the course and let someone else go, because on this forecast, it's really shifty. There's no persistent shift.
So you want to keep runway on both sides, really?
Yeah. I'd probably go middle right.
Middle right, you heard it from Adrian. We'll check in with her on her progress as we go up here. First round, SCC at this 1 lap completed mark. So we can probably call that we'll call it 1 lap completed. It's not the top or the bottom. These courses don't quite work that way. SCC staying first all the way around so far. In closely followed, 20 seconds later by Honda Marine. And a further 20 seconds back is going to be Finport. They're dropping their kite a little early. They've got a little bit of a header just as they approach there. So a little bit of an early drop on Finport, but they're going to come in with nice pace, slightly headed reaching angle, nice little setup. They'll make a really sweet landing here. Easy boat handling for Finport. They go around third. Great job by Finport on this downwind. They've stretched well ahead of ASCO winning. You'll see them coming down here, but they're a good minute away, and they're right in the battle for first and second.
Just going out of shot now, you can't quite see there, but the leading boats, ASCC, Honda and Finport, they're really struggling with some wake here. After this rain squall, that light air is just starting to affect them a little bit, and so it's really critical just to keep these boats as smooth as they can, even in these really light conditions. And try not to dip the wing as much as you can, because that really just is so costly in terms of a couple of boat lengths.
And then to add to that as well, Adrian, ASCO and Winning Group basically come down from just from Bradley's to this bottom mark, with the Captain Cook 3 putting a nice loose cover on them as well.
That's right, that's Sydney Harbour for you.
Yeah,
he had them lined up all the way down, didn't he? I'm afraid it didn't do them any favours whatsoever, but that is the gig. You've got to roll with it and not get too stressed, because it ain't going to change. So next round is ASCO, closely followed by the Winning Group and Smeg. They are so nearly in this group. Every time I look, they're getting closer and closer. They're doing all they can. They need to make more happen, though. Cocco's got to make something happen here. Winning Group probably just a little bit disappointed at one point, halfway up that long beat. Adrian, it looked like they might have come right up into the leading group, and somehow it feels like they just struggled a little bit in the end of that beat, and the run hasn't played out that well for them.
Yeah, that's right. They just, as we mentioned, got a little bit out of phase and lost their way up in that very tricky area, which is from the middle of the harbour up through the Shark Island to the Shark Island mark. Finport sailed quite well. They came in from the right-hand side, and they just seem to stay out of the traffic a bit better too, and that's always important too, because if you do too many tacks, that's so costly as well.
So Smeg go round in 6th position, and CTEC will go round in 7th. And then just looking at wind, it's going to be Vintec followed by Armarine, Pittwater, and then I think it's Birkenhead Point Marina.
Yeah, that's Birkenhead Point. He's lost his way a little bit.
He has lost his... Yeah, and the Brisbane 18 is, with the Fluoro Kite, is also doing really well today. That's our top 10.
Well, CTEC and Finport at the first top mark, they were right next to each other. So it's interesting that Finport obviously did a better job around that course.
So upwind, we're going to reconnect with our leaders. ASCC have tacked reasonably soon, and they are broadly middle left of this beat, as are Honda Marine. Honda even more left than they are. Finport in third decided to hold on, and she's taken up the position more middle right. So Finport middle right, ASCC,
so the Aussies think
and
the
Honda
same way.
middle left.
The Aussies think the same way, because the Kiwis have gone middle left and the Aussies have all gone middle right.
Yeah, there is a split. It's not a massive split, but enough. ASCO have kind of taken half and half between those boats ahead of them.
Oh yeah.
And then Winning Group
that's
are going.
I think Harry
right
Bethwaite's got both passports, so they go up the middle,
that's
right?
Yeah, the man with the dual passport's gone up the middle.
So Finport, the best probably performer, just in the last 20 minutes or so, having to just get themselves through a nasty, nasty bit of Manly ferry wash right now. They haven't really run out of breeze, it's just all that wash. Having to get themselves through it. And at the moment, it's looking like the left probably paid a bit, Adrian.
Oh.
Or a bit, or a lot.
Well, it's to be honest, in this particular situation, you have to wait till the top mark.
you do, you're right.
Because it's little gains here, little losses there, and you just got to piece it all together.
And also, Honda Marine, look, at the moment, if they tack, they'd be miles ahead, but they've got no wind down there.
They're looking very light down there. That's on the back of that little rain squall.
they've got a corner to get out of, and sometimes you just can't get yourself out.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of banging the corner myself. I think that little corridor and erring to one side is always the right way to go.
Don't go in the naughty corner, you know that. Now, Honda Marine are super hard left, as we said, but they're really light. They're really light. They've got a bit of a problem right now because there's no wind over where they are. You can't see them. They're in the far distance. Oh, you can actually. If you look at the middle of your picture, that's Honda Marine. No wind, almost upright. I know that David McDermott will want to tack out of there, but he's got no wind to tack on. He's going to try and roll tack it now, but it's super light. So Finport, who didn't look so good in the middle right, now look like they are miles ahead of them. Well, we'll have to see. All we do know is ASCC, yet again, are finding a way to pick their way through the middle of this beat. They do remain in the lead, I'm pretty sure about that. Hard to say where Honda will end up, but Finport look healthy. And the only thing we know is that Winning Group, as we know that they had to do this, Jimmy, they are rolling the dice. They're super hard right. That just might play out, and you kind of can't blame them for giving it a shot.
They've got to give it a shot. You know, they've got to try and get in front of this Honda Marine guys, and yeah, that's no easy task from what we've seen this week to begin with. But you know, these guys have got to do everything humanly possible, and yeah, you got three of the probably best guys out here that can do that from on the Winning Group at the moment. So you know, we'll see what unfolds. As Adrian said, like this is one of the cruelest little legs of our course is just working across here. You know, you can go a little bit too far one way or the other way, and yeah, just you can lose 4 or 5 spots, or you could gain, you know, 3 or 4. But yeah, no, I think they're, just trying to weigh up where they. I think it looks like they're going to be a little bit closer to Honda, but I'm not quite sure if they'll cross them.
Well, Honda seems to have got some breeze back now. They were struggling. They've got 2 or 3 people out on the wire now. They're one of the lighter crews, aren't they? They're only 245 kilos,
Yeah.
which is around about average. So they're one of the lighter, or sort of lighter to average.
Yeah,
in the
I
fleet.
think a bit light. It's interesting that people on this fleet don't seem to kind of target a particular crew weight. The kind of weight seem to be they are. Some crews clearly are a bit heavier. We saw Appliances online a few days ago in the breezy stuff looking really fast upwind when they were in uprange big rig conditions, and that looked like it might well have been a crew weight thing. But generally speaking, it seems to be that the boats and the rigs have got some flex in them. You know, different crew weights can be competitive.
Yeah, when I was sailing, I had littler rigs, a bit more forgiving, and we were very quick in some of the high ranges where we didn't think we would have been. We were quite a bit lighter, but some of the lighter crews are down in this 215, 225, which is probably too light, but not a lot in it with only 15 crews. I mean, there's so many other variables that have to come together as well in this racing.
And these skiffs these days do now have adjustable rigs. Never used to have that. This is the last couple of years. Could you adjust your rigs? I know you had 3, or was it 4, or how many rigs did you have in?
Well, we had 3. I can't remember if we had a 4th rig, but big rig was I like the big rig the best.
Did you have adjustability on board? Could you actually change the rig settings, as you're sailing along?
Oh yeah, we in the early days we had hydraulics.
Yeah, they were fun, weren't they? When the lines snapped and you got into the bottom of the boat, you just go A over T in the middle of the boat with a bit of hydraulic oil.
We had floppy wings as well.
You had turbo adjustability, probably more than you really wanted, but you had what you had. So these boats have not much, but they have some. Previously they had nothing at all. So they'll all be on max power settings, that's for sure, right now. And up at the top mark, you can see what's happening. We've got 1 and 2 wiring. There are an awful lot of lulls, not very many puffs, and there is rain. And the rain, as it keeps on doing, just knocks the breeze out. At the top mark, it's looking like ASCC will probably get round this mark first, but let's not be completely certain about that till we see it happen. Finport doing really nicely on Port Lay, just above Port Lay. Quite a nice place to be. They'll come in with a little bit of pace. And it looks like right now there's not a lot between Winning Group and Honda Marine. Winning Group's roll the dice out to the right. Looks like it's paid. It's not going to put them in the lead, but it's squeezed them up into this group a little bit. And Honda Marine haven't had the best of this beat, Adrian. I'm not sure this is nerves as they approach what is looking like potentially the end of this regatta, or whether just a bit of bad luck.
Oh no, they hit the left side and they got the end of that rain cloud and they sat in no wind.
The part that I found funny was ASCO was tailing Honda Marine out to that left-hand side, and they seen them sitting there in no pressure, and then went over there and went, oh, that looks like fun, we'll go sit in the no pressure too.
Yeah, that didn't work, did it? Smeg are actually the beneficiary of that. Smeg are going to go around up in about 5th or 6th, I think, so it's all bit by bit getting better for Michael Coxon and his crew. But second round was Finport. Great job by Finport. They've played the last leg and a half really well. Came into people upwind, took that early decision to attack right at the beginning of the beat, although whatever that was half an hour ago. Then rest of the beat pretty good. Great performance down the first part of the run, and they played this tricky beat about as well as you can. Super hard to get this right, Adrian, isn't it? It seems to be more about not getting it wrong.
Oh, that's right. And just keeping an eye up in the sky too on those little cloud cells, because they make such a big difference in terms of how much wind you're going to get and what wind lanes you can see.
So third, Honda Marine. That's a good enough result for what they're trying to achieve to win the overall regatta today. It's doable if they stay where they are now. Lots of mileage yet to happen, but they go around in third. A little bit of a wobble on that beat for David and his team, but they're seasoned hands, very experienced, terrific all-round team. As Adrian said, super smooth boat handling is what probably leads to a lot of their boat speed. So they're going to stay calm, that's for sure. Next around, winning group. That's a much better beat from them. They're right up into the leaders now. And Smeg, Michael Coxon, well done. Smeg was right back in the cheap seats earlier on in this race, and still in pretty cheap seats at the end of the long run. But bit by bit, he's found a way to get into it. He's pretty close to winning group. Winning group, remember, second overall. Smeg, third overall. Both of them are targeting the overall leader, Honda. They can see Honda in their sights. They've got a possibility, Jimmy. It looks like a big ask, but it's not impossible from what we're seeing right now.
Definitely not impossible, but you know, it is a big ask. I think personally, like, you know, after watching the Honda guys and how they sail, but yeah, Smeg is just sailing out of their skin to get back into this. They're not going to die wondering. Winning group, as you can see, just getting hit by a nice bullet. Anything that can get you down onto the back of the Honda guys is, you know, at least if you get with them, you can start throwing stuff at them, and that's what we all are looking forward to. Fingers crossed that we do get to see a bit of a good battle coming to the finish on the next time up.
And you heard a big cheer just then as ASCO went round, ASCO support boat right alongside us. Plenty of vocal encouragement. A lot of spectator boats out here. On a day like today, it's all a bit murky. Might be hard to pick them up, but each boat has got its supporter boat out here.
ASCO's definitely got the nicest one.
ASCO's got the prettiest support boat, a beautiful classic wooden cruiser, and absolutely loaded to the gunnels with ASCO supporters. And of course, the official spectator boat is completely chock-a-block today. Tomorrow there will be 2 spectator boats laid on. Anyone who wants to go out and watch it live, if you haven't got a ticket, hurry up and book one, otherwise you will not be able to get on board. So after ASCO, a bit of a gap, and then it's SeaTech. Marine Pittwater managing to stay on the pace today pretty nicely. Much better job by Simon and his team. And it'll be Marine Pittwater following them, and then Vintech and Birkenhead Point Marina, and then a very, very big gap before Brisbane 80-footer Plants is online. And then Rag and Famish. We're not sure if Rag went back, are we, Jimmy? I hope she did, otherwise she'll won't get a finish today.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they did. I didn't bother checking in, but yeah. I don't know, I just feel for Brycey. I hope that it wasn't them over. You know, he's a good young kid and he's trying very hard with that boat. And, you know, it's this is definitely not the course that you want to sail the whole day and then get in there and read on the finish sheet that you've got an OCS next year, which means on course side, which means you get no points for the day. So it's probably the longest course that we have in our arsenal here at the club.
That's true. So
there's not a lot happening down here on this run at the moment. You've just got to kind of lock in and just there's not a lot of gains or losses really at the moment in terms of strategy down here. You've got the outgoing tides. You're just looking up behind you to see it, those little lanes of pressure so that you can take them down when they come. And Winning Appliances will be pretty happy. They've put almost nearly up to a minute on ASCO now, so that'll get them out of the picture, because they had a very tight battle ride a lot of the way around the course until the bottom mark, and then they just managed to get that break on them.
do you think here, Adrian, is there a case to try and find the high lane or the low lane? Because these two boats here are in a higher lane certainly than Honda, same lane as the two leaders, but do you think it's more compelling to try and soak and start to get that low lane, or do you want to go hunting the early puffs?
Well, what I would do is I'd just keep the boat rolling. I certainly wouldn't just take crew in and sail VMG, because you only need to get one gust out of the ride and then you'll be over there and it's all been a waste. And in any case, I mean, the breeze is going to lift you when you get down into Obelisk anyway. So just set yourself up to, to get almost up step up parallel with him, if I can say it like that, which you can do if you get a nice breeze out of the right and then you're back level with them.
So we're right up close and personal here with that was Megan winning route for a second. We're going to check in again. There you see Finn Port and SCC. There's 1 and 2, doing much the same as Adrian talked about as well, on the same lane, just looking every now and then to a little sniggle to windward to try and be the early recipient of the puff, and then of course they just take it down with them. A bit of a snaking action, everyone doing much the same thing. A lot of technique. You've got the best 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skiffs pretty much on the harbour, possibly and probably in the world, right in front of us on camera right now. It is not your classic skiff Sydney day, 20 knots of northeasterly, blasting down on the edge of control, but a whole load of skill, technique, and the word you used before, Adrian, finesse in boat handling.
That's right. When you've got 3 people, it seems it's obvious and easy to coordinate 3 people, but the way the 3 of you lock in together out on that wing, talking, not much is ever really said. It's all just done by intuition, and the really good crews, you'll hardly hear them saying anything. So much is sort of almost like you kind of say muscle memory, and even in the way that you actually sail the course. A lot of them have sailed this course so many times, they know automatically. They don't have to say, look out there for the wind coming from that particular point, because I know it's already there. It's really great to watch the way that the crews are just so locked in together and really just one part of it, just the one unit rather than 3 separate people there.
You see Michael Coxon looking around, as much, I'd say, in hope as anything else for the next puff coming down, but clearly he wants to know when the puff's there, isn't he, because then he can get fully set up to use it to accelerate, not just to heel over, and he keeps looking over a lot. He's going to crick his neck pretty badly there.
Yeah, that's right. Honda had soaked right down, but I saw that when they saw that Smeg and Winning Group were making a bit of gains on them, they arced it up and put 3 people out on the wire and decided to get up in front of them, consolidate that gain and get right up in front of them rather than get caught down below with no wind. But they'd already made that mistake on the beat, so I don't think they're going to let that happen again.
No, and they've translated that leeward gauge into a little bit of fast forward as they brought the bow up, so a little extension. But good tactics, though, from Honda. As you said, there's no point being a low lane with your 2 critical oppo, Winning Group and Spec, the only 2 boats that can actually affect them directly behind them, but coming into them in a high lane. You'd be a brave person indeed to let that happen, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's right. And just looking up the course here, to right up in the right of your screen there, you can see that ASCC and Finport are a little bit soft, so they'll be looking, hopefully not looking behind, because that's never productive, but just keeping a loose eye out to make sure that they cover down into Obelisk Bay.
Finport continuing to be pretty competitive here. They are certainly not losing contact with ASCC. If anything, they're coming into them. Both the leading boats stretched a little bit on Honda Marine. Honda Marine looked to me like they pretty much held position with Winning Group and Smeg. But up front, it's ASCC who've led the whole way around so far, approaching the bottom far corner, last outpost, whatever the best word is, of this long course. They're approaching for the last time, second time, that's the last time. Round this mark, they'll leave to starboard. Then it's that long beat up across the harbour, round Shark Island, down to that bottom mark, and then a short beat to the finish in Double Bay. Still a lot of mileage to do. So far they've led all the way around. They're coming off the back of a 1-2, that's their score sheet 2 days ago, the last time we raced. And Jimmy, when I look at ASCC, it does already feel like a kind of a story of what might have been. We were expecting great things from them, and we have seen great things. Let's not belittle it. They've had a bit of bad luck. They did have a bit of gear failure. They had that light race where it all went inside out a little bit that just didn't go their way. And even with what might end up being a 1-2-1 scorecard, they're going to go into the last day with really no chance of winning. That kind of, I don't know why, I feel a bit sorry for them.
I feel sorry for them too, but we can't have the Kiwis taking all the top spots again this year. So, but
exactly.
yeah, they definitely deserve a lot better luck than what they've copped in this regatta. I think that day where everything went pear-shaped for Josh, it just it literally was one small thing compounded into about 4 things, and then a couple other things happened to him, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot of these guys, boys on ASCC in the future. And you know, I dare say when Dave on the Honda decides to maybe not retire, but when he wants to hand the baton over, I'm sure that Josh is going to be more than a willing recipient of the title. That's for sure. He's, you know, everything about him is just really good to watch. It's like watching the Honda, like you know, the reserve crew
Class act.
on the Honda. They're just so polished and so class act, and I just feel sorry for him in this, for what's happened to him this regatta. That you know, like they hold their heads high, and you know, they're very nice people to talk to, and very humble too with their view on everything. And you know, when we talk to them about the breakages and that, they were just sort of like, oh well, you know, that's sailing, you know, it's just
it's not bitter and twisted, is it? It's just sort of accepting it. Adrian, you said to me earlier on how hard it is to get into the skiff class. You can't just turn up however good you think you might be and just suddenly win. It just doesn't work like that. Josh is kind of one of the few people who's almost broke that rule. He kind of came in and just performed, but it's rare, isn't it, to come into this fleet in your era and the same now and expect to be able to perform.
Yeah, I mean that's a sort of that doesn't happen very often, because you'll find most of the guys, like even Honda, I mean, they've been in the class 5 years. They've just steadily worked their way up. I mean, it's not just the 18s, it's in many of the classes. You've got to do your time at the bottom of the fleet, and that's where you just slowly, where the learning curve's great, and then you just chip away and get up to the top in the last couple of years, and that's when you put yourself in the winning group.
So ASCC approaching this mark now. They're going to be in the lead. Finport keeping them absolutely honest, that's for sure. They'll be around second. And interestingly enough, behind, Honda Marine also holding their position. Smeg and Winning Group decided to split jibes just after we last saw them about 5 minutes ago. So Winning Group are going to be approaching on one lay line for this mark, and Smeg will be approaching from the other lay line. Visually, Smeg look like they've made a gain there at this point, but it'll be a minute or two till they get here. Then we'll make a decision. We'll see which of those two boats is going to have the best chance to try to hunt down Honda in what is left of this race.
So everything's so calm on board ASCC. Not a word spoken
I
around
know,
the bottom
right?
mark. You've got the forward hand in there who's just put away the kite. The skipper's already and the main sheet already out on the wire. Boats now all settled down, and they're only within 20 metres of the mark. They're just sailing so well. They've been so calm, even when boats from behind have put them under pressure. They haven't altered their strategy. They've obviously said this is what we're doing, and off they go. Finport the same, have done well each. They've just actually just kept chipping away at the time. They have actually unusually, compared to ASSC, they've actually gone to some corners at times, but chosen the right corner each time. So that's been good.
Yeah, corners are fine, just make it the right corner. So you're just seeing in the background there's Honda Marine going round, but Smeg have got ahead of Winning Group. Remember, Smeg were behind Winning Group last time we had that up close and personal camera shot. They take opposite to ways down the bottom end of this run, and there's always one way that's better than the other, of course. And Smeg came across there, didn't actually have to use their starboard rights. They were across them anyway. Smeg will get around. A little bit of a boat handling test for both the crews here. They're both going to be up to it, I have no doubt at all. Smeg, our sponsor of the day. We talked to Michael Coxon and his sponsor earlier on. Long-term sponsor Smeg, I think the second or maybe third longest term sponsor of all in the Skiff Club. Around goes Michael Coxon. He can see Honda Marine in his sights quite clearly. He hasn't been able to do that all race. Winning Group 2, they can both see the boat they needed to chase. It's been the story of the whole regatta. It's the same story today. Honda Marine still managing to stay one step ahead, but these Aussies, they're after the Kiwi, Jimmy.
They're definitely after him. It's like rugby, isn't it? Like the Aussies always chasing the Kiwis, unfortunately. So,
well,
but yeah, we're the like I said before that I don't think there's enough runway left for Smeg. Now I'm sort of thinking they've got a real chance to sort of take it to Honda. But you know, the heart rate on board Honda, I reckon it'd be, you know, wouldn't raise a 1 or 2 beats. They're just so polished to the Honda guys. So you know, just be good if Coco can get to them, start throwing something at them, and see if they can unnerve the boys on Honda. I don't think it can be done.
But from Honda's point of view, wouldn't you just be saying, I'm not going to put everything at stake for third or fourth?
No.
I'm just going to sail it up here and get a top 5 result.
Exactly.
And if
right.
they slip through me, so be it.
Yeah, well, that's what
But, you know, there's such a great race now going on between Smeg and Winning and Asco. Asco took about, 15, 20 seconds out of them. Having lost it up the beat, they actually gained it on the way down the run. So
Yeah.
it's quite. I always love this end of the regatta where there's so much more strategy, not just in sailing the course, but also in your way around navigating the points.
There's little battles within battles, isn't there, Adrian?
Yeah, battles
it's all
within
going
battles.
on.
Yeah.
So 6th was ASCO, 7th is SeaTech, and then just behind them, sailing a pretty competitive race, is Armory and Pittwater, and they're going to be going around in 8th position. That'll be best result for Armory and Pittwater for a while if they can keep it together. So Simon Nern will be pretty content with that if he can hold it together. But Vintech, we've sort of in and out the picture a bit, Jimmy, but not up the front of the fleet as much as we thought. Will be after them. And then Birkenhead Point Marina, going pretty well for a boat with 2/3 new crew. They translated into that boat extremely efficiently. After Birkenhead Point Marina, there's a very, very big gap indeed. That is no understatement. Appliances online of the next boat, but they are a long way back, as in minutes plural back. So there's I don't think anyone's going to get into Birkenhead Point Marina. They're going to finish around the top 10 if they can keep this together in this last last half a long lap. Good job by Marcus Ashley-Jones and his standing crew Geronimo, and his front sheet hand John Walton, the regular crew off Birkenhead Point Marina. So there we go.
Haven't seen much of Noakes Marine today. Haven't seen much of Noakes.
No, we haven't seen Sean Langman on Noakes. We have seen a lot of him in this regatta. He's been pretty competitive, not just in the fresh stuff, as you'd expect with Sean, but also in the light to medium. But today, I don't know, I haven't seen him for a while. I can see him upwind, actually, about a mile or so upwind, a long way back. So today will not be his favourite day on the harbour.
No, he'll be disappointed today because he was, wanting to sort of secure a spot in the top 10. Hopefully it hasn't affected it too much.
Sean 57 yesterday, apparently. Sean's birthday yesterday.
Sean Langman's birthday, okay.
I said to him, how was yesterday? He goes, I've been feeling 57 for a little while now, so I don't know where he's just got to that number and said, that's it, I'm stopping at 57, but it sounds about right. It looks about right.
So winning group having a look at the right-hand side of this beat, and ASCO are off with them. Meanwhile, ASCC at Honda Marine, Sveg, Finport, all taking the left-hand side. So we've got a difference of opinion, that's for sure, on how to go up here. And as usual, ASCC mostly finding the middle to be their favourite place. They're left of middle for sure. They're staying close to their biggest competitors. But they're middle left. Winning group, the hard right. Sveg close to Honda. But it will take a lot to upset this regatta, Adrian, because the really winning group of Smeg need to win this race. Well, they could do that. I mean, we're with Smeg here right in front of you on camera. Smeg are 100 metres away from ASCC, leaning on the water, so Smeg could yet win this. They then need Honda Marine to drop back to worse than fourth to keep this series alive. Well, Honda are in fourth right now, yeah. I think third or fourth, so it is not impossible. I know it's always felt unlikely it would ever pan out that way. But and we have got, of course, our top boats at the front, like always seems to happen in these regattas. Doesn't matter how each race plays out, it always seems to be the top boats get to the front.
Well, the course is so long. You've got a chance with the boats that have got boat speeds just to settle back and just sail well, just extract themselves from the tacking and jibing of the boats that aren't as quick, and separate, and then just get gradually work your way back up, which is exactly what Smeg did, because they were very deep at the bottom mark the first time, and they've just worked their way back up again. And the forecast now, I mean, looking up the harbour as we look up towards the city and going up on this going up towards Shark Island, the wind settled in for sort of 12 to say 14 knots, but there are still a lot of shifts to go. And with these boats being so relatively close together, they might look far away, but there's still, you just have to get stuck for less than 30 seconds, and the boat behind you, which you thought you had easily, is right back on your tail again. So it's really hard to say that anybody's out of it in this top group. It
is still game on, that's for sure. Michael Coxon on Smeg, the most left-hand boat, but pretty similar line to the 2 or 3 boats ahead of him. He's looking over at the winning group, who took the hard right up here. And, 1 minute winning group look famous down there, Adrian, don't they? And then all of a sudden the shift goes back to the left, and they don't look so good after all. But right now, winning group doesn't look like it's cost them much, if anything, by going hard right up the speed.
That's right. Again, there's not much left of the tide. There's only about an hour left of the tide now. So all the strategy associated with that in the beat before doesn't take on as much significance now. So whether you cross across the tide over there or do what Smeg's doing and just basically punch up the middle a bit, it's not as a winning strategy as it once was at the beginning. I think that it's all about pressure now, pressure and lift. Coming up here and keeping an eye about. There's still a bit of cloud activity around, so trying to use that for our advantage. And certainly Michael Coxon is looking around a lot. He's not in screen at the moment, but there he is. He's looking around a lot. That's one thing about him. You've seen him all the way downwind and all the way upwind, which is interesting because often when you're steering, that can be quite. The boat can turn around you if you're looking around steering, but he seems to have perfected that quite well.
I think the right-hand side is just proving here has actually worked pretty nicely as Asco just slightly with a leverage to the right of Smeg have actually come right into and forced Smeg to tack, and the winning group who went up to the hard right of this beat, she would have crossed both of those boats. Winning group likes the right so much she's tacked back towards it, so in their own ways both winning group and Smeg trying hard to make something happen, both taking opposite strategies, but they don't want to go up the middle. They're looking to take a hard left or a hard right, looking to create leverage, looking to create a chance to jump into and ahead of Honda Marine and ASCC. A win for either of them today is pretty much essential if they're going to keep the series alive. It doesn't look like Honda Marine's going to drop much below 5th. We have a leading group of 6 here. Could happen, but probably not. They'd have to be the last of this leading group to make anything other than a win for winning group and Smeg make sense for the overalls. So there's Honda Marine deciding to do a little bit of a covering manoeuvre here possibly. She can't cover winning group and Smeg though, Adrian, can she? She's got her two closest oppo going different ways up the speed, so she's got to make her own decision.
Yeah, they've sailed this race, the whole race really, that loose cover on their opposition, but they've just been confident enough though to still back the side that they want to go.
So the boat that's not in the overall contention and that's came into this regatta as one of the favourite Australian boats, probably second favourite to Asco on form and boat speed, but it just hasn't quite happened for them in this regatta for one reason or another. But today, showing that all that previous success and form was a reason for it. They're living with and indeed breathing down the neck of the top boats, ASCC, Honda, Winning Group, Smeg, Asco, and looking like they fully belong in this fairly rarefied company. Just Adrian, looking at their sailing, looking at their rig, their setup, what comes to mind?
Well, they're if you compare them with, say, for example, Honda Marine, they are just, they're keeping it nice and flat, but there are times when they just don't seem as coordinated as Honda Marine. But in terms of the little things that they're doing, I mean, they're obviously doing a good job there. One thing about today, which is fortunate for this fleet, is that the harbour's pretty empty, and that's got a lot to do with how it's a rainy day, and that's made it a lot easier for these crews, in terms of being able to sail the race without constantly worrying about, a ferry behind them or something like that. So, but I mean, they're a good team. I mean, Charlie Gundy, he's a great 12-foot skiff sailor who's in the bow. He's working very hard, and he's one of the classic kids that come out of Sydney Harbour who does big boats as well as he's got a very good background in a diverse range of different craft, 18, 12s, and sailing the Sydney Hobart, and that's what makes one of these crews so good, because they've got such a diverse background of skills that they bring to the race, and these guys are showing that.
Certainly a very powerful looking setup, isn't it? Really quite a lot of depth in that mainsail, not just at the foot where you can see very clearly, but all the way up through the rig. Very powerful setup, and they seem to be showing that they've got plenty of ability to get through these lulls.
I mean, they're a relatively big crew compared to some of the others.
Yeah, they need the power, but they're doing it just a little bit more hill than they really want there, but finding the power, a little bit of a puff just off Nielsen often happens. When you're talking about the little things, the tack they did just then looked extremely smooth, but they did put the wing bar properly in the tide. And too much wind for a roll tack. We're not in roll tack conditions, we're in keep the boat dead flat conditions. Let's see how the next one goes. We'll put the pressure on Keegan here, shall we? Adrian, you can talk us through the next tack as it happens, give us a full blow-by-blow critique. Just be their coach for a second, and there's no one else listening, just you and I.
Now you're putting the pressure on.
We're just having a quick look at Honda Marine while we wait for Finport to get ready for their tack. The Honda Marine coming back towards us as well, into the Nielsen beach side as well. And you can see Finport, and we're just behind them at the top of your picture. That's us in the camera cat. We're watching Finport closely. They're going to have to tack quite soon because they are about to hit the rocks otherwise. So here we are, up close and personal. Talk us through this, Adrian.
Sure, well, but they have settled into a nice lane of wind across here, so they'd be wanting to leave their tack till the last minute, because just looking up towards that Shark Island mark, you can see just nice little black lines of wind all the way up, and just stepping your way up through here can be tricky, because you do get little gusts that come up from in Rose Bay. So they're setting up now. There's Charlie, he's just letting the jib go. He goes through first, main through together. There they go. It's they've settled in out of there quite quickly. That was a good tack.
Nice, wasn't it? Very nice. Actually, a lot better than the previous tack. Flat water, which would have helped them, but that looked a high 8s, maybe even a 9 out of 10. Nice job by Finport.
Nice job, Finport.
Yeah. Good tack. So Finport in second. AirCC has stepped away from them a little bit, still leading on the water. Honda Marine we're looking at on the drone picture now to the right of Finport, and behind them winning group Asco and Sneg in very close proximity between each other, but slightly losing contact with Honda Marine, Finport and AirCC. Remember, they have to go up around Shark Island, which is that island just ahead of them, just to the left of your picture right now. And then it's the Ricci run down to the mark just off the big cruise liner, and then it's the beat up to the top mark off Double Bay to finish this, which is race 8 of the 2019 JJ Giltinan Championship. And our series leader ahead of us, Honda Marine, still keeping it together. As you've said, Adrian, smooth. They look quick all the time. They never look slow. They always look like they're on top of the situation. And yet again, up against 24 other top skiffs, they're kind of making it look sort of straightforward.
It's interesting as a steerer, always just watching where everyone holds their tiller extension. So, he's got his under his arm like that. Coco often has his up over his shoulder.
Yeah.
And how they, there's just so many little things that everybody does differently, but, it's the sum of the parts that produce the winning formula there. And the different preferences, who does what on the boat. It's not just one set structure. It depends on the different strengths and weaknesses of crews. Often on this course, I'd just turn to my boat hand, who was nicknamed the Messiah, and say, you just tell us where to go up here. The great Charlie Diekman.
You had a Messiah on board. Good work.
Charlie the Messiah. Wow, there's a new one.
So Honda Marine executing a very high quality tack as well, right in front of the camera. You've all had your own opinions about what you liked and didn't like about that, but yeah, on the camera cat, we're going to give that a 9 as well. That looked pretty nice. And David managed to find a little bit of boat wash to surf down, and he's probably trying to do that sporting thing, Adrian, stay in the present tense, is it? Not look ahead to what might happen on the next leg, but just handle the current situation as best he can.
Yeah, the one thing is there's not as many fleets out on the water today, because often you look across to the fleets and you get a bit of an idea what's on the next leg. That's where they are helpful on the harbour, but the rest of the time they just get in the way.
So Honda Marine with Finport one ahead of them. You can see Finport coming back on pretty high starboard. Pretty shifty, isn't it, Adrian? The angles are changing all the time. You talked about the little shifts with the rate, etc. It almost feels to me like we've got bigger stuff happening here now. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, the forecast, just reminding you again today, was for pretty much straight south wind and just sort of east or west of that. So a lot of today has been just about shifts, no persistent shift, just looking up the course, looking at the lanes, and really the old skiff principle about staying in the pressure, so trying not to tack when it's light, just leaving it a couple of seconds till you just get a nice little gust to turn it, and so you can keep both wings out of the water.
perfect blue sky in the background of Honda Marine, and a seaplane just circling through Rose Bay, as happens. There's a seaplane terminal up here, and always plenty of seaplane action at the weekends. Usually we try and make sure the drone and the seaplane don't have a coming together. So far we've kept them apart, but it does get interesting on occasions. So the seaplane coming across us. We're going to make sure our drone keeps well away from there if possible. And we still got 3 drones, Jimmy.
We still
Not sure
do.
we'll be saying that tomorrow, but we still have 3.
We still do.
So hopefully tomorrow they might get a nor'easter to finish off the regatta.
That's the forecast, isn't it? But they're talking about I was seeing a 16 knot northeasterly, not a full-blown one.
No, just a end of season 10 to 15. I think it's a bit late in the season for black nor'easters now, although we did have them quite late this year.
So first round, the Shark Island Markets ASCC, who have certainly stretched again on her closest follower, which is Finport. Another great beat. We haven't been having too close an eye on ASCC. We're obviously looking after Honda and the boats trying to chase her down. But ASCC doing a great job. We're just going to stay here and watch the next couple of boats coming around. But great job by Josh and ASCC. At the moment, that he might win this race. If he does, we'll get to do a race winners interview with him. And then we'll see what happens to Honda. We might be having a chat with them as well, depending on their result. So first round, ASCC has led round every mark so far of today, race 8. And then is Honda Marine crossing a Finport? I think she is. Got the last shift right, always important. Honda Marine were a solid 50 metres behind, well, barely a half boat length there. I just saw Finport just bow up, bow down. There's really nothing between these 2 boats. Finport lays this, then they're probably going to be next boat round. If there's attack, then they won't. So super close between these 2.
And Honda didn't do a very good tack there, so you can see they were just a bit had too much heel coming out of the tack and didn't look as if they had as much breeze. So maybe that Finport lays it here, just gets a little lefty, and they'll make it round.
I think that's the first bad tack I've seen them do in the whole week so far.
We won't come down too hard on them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's it. We're off them. We're completely off them now.
I think,
no, definitely not.
I think what happened there, Finport picked an absolutely perfect ley line. It's one of those ones where Honda knew that if Finport ducked them, which they were quite happy to do on port, that they were going to lay, and Honda couldn't tack before because it would have been too skinny on the ley line. So great job by Keegan picking that perfect ley line that gets him back ahead of Honda Marine. Feels that you have to do things close to perfect if you're going to beat Honda Marine. Little example there, beautifully executed by Finport, and it just slightly hassled Honda Marine into, by their standards, a slightly poor tack.
And this wind is really decreasing now. It's the whole harbour's just slowly changing, and the wind's just leaving.
And at this point, Adrian, is it just going to go softer and softer? Is this the beginning of the end of it, or what's going to happen?
Yeah, this is now it's gone. There's not even any little cells left in the sky.
So second round was Finport, third round was Honda Marine. We're just going to stay up here and check the battle for the followers, and then once we've got this next couple of rounds, we'll rejoin the leaders.
So Winning Appliances, who's not in our screen, just coming into our screen now, coming up to the top mark. They've done a good job. They went hard right up that beat, and they've put some time there on Smeek.
Yeah, nice job at the end by Winning Group, who will go around just ahead of ASCO. And the battle with the Finport Honda Marine is quite a nice one. You're seeing there, Finport got the kite hoist done early. Honda Marine waited, but they've gone with it now, and both of them get a nice little let-down puff as they head off towards Bradley's. As often happens, it looks like they won't lay Bradley's, but of course the Bradley's lift nearly always comes into play. So anyway, behind the Winning Group went round in 4th position. There she is, just cruising around. She'll be going for a kite hoist very soon indeed. And ASCO are next around. There they go. And after them will be Smeg, and then there's a big gap until we get to SeaTech, and then we get to Birkenhead Point Marina.
So Winning Appliances are leaving a long time to set their kite, actually.
Yeah, surprise, isn't it? We saw Finport do the complete opposite. They actually got the kite before they even got past the Shark Island Wharf, which looked a little punchy, but seemed to work for them. But yeah, right, Adrian, Winning Group still haven't got the kite up. They're still going to sort that out. ASCO right in front of us going for a much earlier hoist. It's got to be the way to go in this light stuff.
If you can see in the far of your screen there, Finport, they're making use of that bulk on board because they're just laying it quite nicely around Bradley's.
It looks
Very
like
polite way to say it, Adrian. The bulk.
the bulk, yeah, and a long way ahead.
Got to be polite about people's weight, you know.
It looks like ASCC might have had to drop to get round Bradley's. That's unusual. Maybe we've got a bit more of a permanent shift happening, but I think ASCC had to drop to get round the point. They'll probably hoist again. Anyway, that's our first base boat. Still second on the water is Finport, followed by Honda, and then it's a winning group. And the boat in front of us now, ASCO. James Doran with Trent Barnabas in the middle and Harry on the front. Again, another boat who came in with great expectations, Jimmy, but for one reason or another for them, again, it just hasn't quite been their week.
No, just, I know they put every ounce of effort into this for the JJs, and Doz and the boys be pretty disappointed with their result, but at the end of the day, there's still some podium spots to chase, and hopefully that they can get on the podium and stay on the podium. They left no stone unturned. They did a lot of work with a lot of people to get the boat to where it is now, and you do feel sorry for them, but that's sailing. You can go out and be sailing. You can win every race during the club week, or in all the club races that we have. You can win everything there, and then you get to the Worlds and you can absolutely have a shocker. We had the big fella on the other day. Same thing, with the the States and then the Nationals with him. Like,
oh yeah, the Worlds, Worlds,
the Worlds, and then the Australians. Sailing's one of those cruel sports. You can do your best every day, and just some days just aren't your day to shine.
So ASCC reset again down there to get down to that bottom mark, and Finport are still flagging their chute to get around Bradley, so that makes for a bit of exciting sailing, and that cruising catamaran's not doing them any favours.
Well, look at Honda Marine now, our steerage leader, pointing out the rocks. I think they're going to sort themselves out here, but they're going to have to do a 90-degree turn, get that kite down, get it out the way, and get round Bradley's. Finport, punchy as you like, having a crack at getting round Bradley's. But Bradley's is an unforgiving place, Adrian, isn't it? There's a bunch of rocks down there.
Yeah, there is actually, and they're quite close to them, but they should be okay.
So
Honda Marine did a nice drop there because they actually had a lot of the chute to leeward, and they just pulled it in. Oh, it's got hit away there.
That was a wave. That wasn't me giving Adrian a clip round the head. So Honda Marine did do tidy as you like, and in the end they hadn't really lost out much on Finport at all.
I think Finport's in underneath this cruising cat, right? That's probably half the battle for them and half their saviour.
Yeah. But ASCO, even with having dropped their chute and set again, appears they've extended their lead even more.
ASCC, yes, out
ASCC.
in front. They're right. They've gone round the bottom mark. They're now clear round. They've led round every single mark of this course. Challenging day, challenging course. Impressive job from Josh on ASCC. So he's round clear first as we look at that massive cruise liner, the Celebrity Solstice. I'm not sure who named it that, but I'm sure they could have tried a bit harder. Anyway.
But even though Honda dropped and Finport didn't, it doesn't seem there was a gain in either, gain or loss in either strategy there.
No, not much at all. Remember, if Honda Marine stay where they are now, they would, let's not put the knuckles on them too much, they could win this regatta today. They probably will race tomorrow, I'd imagine, but they wouldn't need to. Their worst result is a fifth, so they can discard a fifth. Today would be a third. A remarkable scoreline. And these regattas, we were just talking about ASCO, Adrian, struggling in this regatta despite going in with a great run of form, great crew, etc., etc. These are tough regattas. Skiff racing, it's just hard to put it together. Super hard. In your day, 3-4 rigs just to add to the complication. Today we only have 2 rigs, but somehow it feels like it's just harder than so many regattas to do.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, one thing that you don't notice today because it hasn't happened is the equipment. There's been no breakages that we've seen today, and that's testament to the preparation, all the thing that's done onshore, I should say. And I actually felt it was easier with 3 rigs because you had more choices. That 2-rig setup is actually a little harder to rig for the right conditions and sail the right conditions.
So Finport going for the very early drop, but they have pretty much stopped dead. They need to get themselves going. Their spinnaker just taking a while to get down. but there's no way Honda can get round a slow-moving Finport with inside rights. So Finport take their time, keep it calm. They go around second. AFCC's been long gone, a minute or so, but very light airs. We're in one wiring territory. Upwind, I can see AFCC in 1.5 wiring maximum, but big shift. You want to be on starboard tack here, I think.
And again, in this part of the course, the wake, particularly around this bottom mark, it's directly on this main channel down the harbour where you get a lot of ferry wake and a lot of pleasure boat wake, and that's something that's very difficult. And when you're only one stringing, that's where you've got to be so smooth and just keep that boat flat and moving forward and trying not to stop as much as you can in the waves. Just looking at Finport now, they're just suffering from that.
Great run by Asco, who get ahead of Winning Group. So third round was Honda Marine, fourth round will be Asco, who've overtaken Winning Group. Smeg charging down here downwind in their own private little puff. But all these boats, what matters is getting ahead of Honda Marine. Well, if you're Honda Marine right now, Adrian, you're in great shape, but what you probably don't want is a super light, tricky last beat trying to defend two boats that will probably go different ways up the beat.
Yeah, that's always tricky if both, if your competitors go either side, but I suspect you'll see them tack back to the middle again here.
But it's light, isn't it? It's fluky.
It is light.
Something odd could happen here.
It is light, and there's also been a little bit of a westerly shift here as well. We saw that when all the boats didn't make it around Bradley. So, but they've got. I mean, really, the key is going to be sticking in pressure, and they've both got pressure at the moment. Perhaps Finport more so.
And the boats that tacked on the mark, Finport tacked earlier on, and Winning Group, you've just seen go around the mark, no question for them. Split with Honda, they're always going to do that. And right now it looks like a nice tactic. They've got some pressure. They even got close to 3 people on the wire.
Well, if you'd want to be on starboard just taking the lift, I would have thought.
Just closest to the mark, isn't it? Much and there's breeze. So Honda Marine taking a relative risk. They carried on port for quite a long time. They're the most hard right boat, not being as conservative as we thought they would be. And their main competitor, Winning Group, tacks on the mark, gets leverage she probably thought she'd never get on this beat, and it may work, it may not, but right now Winning Group will be pretty happy to get that separation. Honda Marine finding a bit of breeze. You Honda fans out there, don't get too nervous. You're in great shape, and they have got breeze out there, maybe not quite as much as Winning Group and Finport on the left, but they're not in that little super light spot we saw before. A lot of supporters for Honda Marine, both back in New Zealand. They'll be watching this live, I'm sure, and also here in Australia. A lot of Honda supporters walking around the streets of Double Bay, lining up for 2 wins in a row, back to back. That's not a thing that happens that often. They've got to love it. 7 crew, Sevi Jarvin did it for a while. Ian Murray in his day did it a few times, but it's a rare thing to win these things back to back.
Well, there's a big gap now in the front fleet. The boat behind that's coming around the mark is SeaTech. Other than that, there's quite a lot of separation between the front of the fleet and the back of the fleet now. So,
yes, so Armoury Pitwater still doing quite nicely. She's the next one back from SeaTech, followed by Bergen and Point Marina. And then after that, there's really a massive, massive gap. You can barely see the next skiff. So we've got this front group of about 6 or 7. We know all the key issues. Up at the front, ASCC serenely carrying on, managing to make sense of this tricky conditions.
Yes, ASCC are fairly comfortable there. They don't have anybody breathing down their neck, so they're able to just sail the shifts. They're not being forced out to a side they don't want to go to.
Close to the finish now. The finish line is dead upwind. You can just see in the distance the starter boat, which is also the finish boat. And Josh is not a million miles away from a ley line, could even be last tack, any kind of a righty here. He'll take this all the way to the finish. Nice tack from ASCC.
It's a long race, this one. I mean, it's already been 1 hour and 3/4. It's a lot of sailing in tricky conditions. And when you're in these conditions and there's a lot of in, out, it can be, with people in and off the wire, it can actually be really exhausting. It's always much easier when you're just 3 of you out there and you can relax a bit and it's not so gusty.
Yeah, ASCC crew, sailing with Josh's usual crew, Jack Simpson and Dave Hazard, keeping it all tightened together. And interesting seeing Josh there just hanging his weight off the trapeze wire, and if he gets half a chance there. Adrian, you used to do that as well, I guess, in your day? Just keeping himself in these marginal conditions on the wire, keeping the weight off the boat through the rig?
Yeah, it's one of the main things. It's easier if you can keep, particularly the steerer, out there, because it's so then they can just lock in and look forward and get in tune with the boat. You know, the forward hand's always the best one to run if they can.
He's a tiller under his arm person.
Yeah.
We should run a little list. Who likes it underneath and who goes over the top. Very close to finish now. The Finnish boys just off the right-hand side of the photo. He didn't quite lay it on that starboard tack, but it's going to be a short port to cross the line. Josh and his guys on ASCC approaching the finish of race 8 of the 2019 championship. Just one race to go tomorrow. Start at the usual time tomorrow. 2:30 will be live for the Camera Cat. 2:45 start time if you're on the water. Look forward to seeing you out there if you're watching at home or wherever your home is, whichever part of the world you are, whether you're watching live or watching the recorded version, which so many of you do. Then thank you for joining us today. A bit more coverage yet to come. We're not about to finish, but good to have you with us. Good to hear all your comments on YouTube, on the Facebook channel. Lots of feedback we get, and we try to go through all of that and learn and improve as we go. So thank you for staying engaged with us.
ASCC did such a good job today of just sailing so calmly. They were under pressure quite often at marks, you know, looking behind, seeing boats come down with pressure, but they just were confident the whole way through. And it's always nice when you've got a bit of a gap to second, because it does mean that you're not under pressure to sail to perhaps part of the course that you might not want to go. And they've done such a good job of that.
As it turns out, Honda Marine, as we said, took the hard right up this beat. Well, it's worked out very nicely for them. Far from being winning group becoming a threat to them, they've probably extended, and it looks like they might have got ahead of Finport. Here's a port starboard coming up. Honda Marine on starboard, getting close to the port ley line for the finish. Well, she was behind Finport, but she's now got ahead of them. They're a clear 2 boat lengths ahead. They're going to tack ahead. They'll tack ahead and straight in front without any question. One more tack to go. They managed to get the wing bar in the water for one of the few times. Usually their precision is remarkable. They throw in what is probably the last or the one from last tack of this race. They've moved up to second position. Not much sailing to go. There's the finish line on the left-hand side. A little bit of pressure being applied by Finport, but Honda Marine up this last beat. Definitely possible to make a mistake, to mess it up on this last beat, but as ever, they stay calm, smooth, fast, polished. They were the worthy champions last year in 2018. Jimmy, they're heading that way again in 2019. Great guys, great crew to watch. Very
just responding
pro outfit.
to every gust there. You know, you just see them. They just move their bodies. They just respond to every gust. You know, in anticipation too, not after the fact. They're so polished.
So let Finport go first. Don't want to have any kind of a tangle. Honda Marine put in their last tack. Get ready for the cheers. Honda Marine supporters all around the world. They're going to cross the line. This is going to be good enough for their second JJ Giltinan Championship in a row. They were our champions in 2018. They've done it again in 2019 with a race to spare. I don't know the last time that happened in the JJs. We'll have to check the history books, but it's been a little while. A fantastic performance by Honda Marine. This has not been an easy series. We've had a couple of days of classic northeasterlies and the fresh stuff, but we've had a couple of days where it's been at least as tricky as today, if not more, and throughout all of that, Adrian, somehow a 5th discard. That tells you all you need to know.
Well, I mean, it's just preparation, performance, and perfection.
Very happy looking bunch of guys on Honda Marine. Awesome performance. So they are our champions of 2019. Still one race to go. The minor places are yet to be sorted out. Talking of minor places, well, winning group who just crossed the line in 4th position are going to be in the battle for the minor places.
And interestingly, Winning and Asco, they've stuck like glue to each other this whole race.
Yeah, they have, and of course they are in the overalls for the 2nd, 3rd, 4th. There is Asco goes round next, followed by Smeg. Smeg, great recovery from a terrible position at the end of the first beat.
That cost them dearly, that, because they had the boat speed, and once they were able to break away from the pack, they got back up there, but they just couldn't break through into the, to the front of that top group, and so that early loss, really, they just couldn't recover from that.
So it's going to be an Aussie battle for 2, 3, 4, but we're going to have to check ASCC after yet another win. They might have a little say about that. We'll check the arithmetic for you, and certainly before we start tomorrow's race, we'll get it all completely lined up. But one thing's for sure, we have a winner already, the impressive Honda Marine. 2nd, 3rd, the rest of the podium definitely to be decided. And the Honda Marine just doing a quick sail past the main spectator boat. Just as we watch Meg crossing the line, we're going to come back and see Honda Marine celebrating, just sailing past their coach
Graham
boat.
Catley on the front.
And on the coach boat is Graham Catley, who we had as our guest commentator on day one of this regatta last Saturday, a week ago today. And Graham, the architect really of this New Zealand fleet. He was sailing skiffs himself, and I think having taken a bit of a beating from the Aussies for a bunch of years, decided to do something about it, got a bunch of boats, found some potentially good skiff sailors and put it all together. And a few seasons later, here we are. I think if Graham tells the story a lot of seasons later, it's taken him a long time, but feels it's happened pretty fast. All of a sudden now, the Kiwis are absolutely the teams to beat. That wasn't the case 5-6 years ago, but it certainly is now. Honda Marine chipping away for a few years at this regatta until last year. They won it the year before, they got close. Last year they won it, and this year they have absolutely grabbed it by the scruff of the neck and made it their own. There's our Honda team right close by. David, we're not really geared up for on-the-water interviews, but how does it feel? Champion 2 years in a row. Tell us what your first thought is. Awesome job, great to watch you. And is the skipper looking after you, lads? Is the skipper looking after you on the water? We'll have a proper chance to talk to them in the dock. It's very hard with the underwater stuff, but you can tell from their expressions and a bit of walking on the water technique going on. These boys pretty happy. They've come here to do a job and they've done it pretty well. And you mentioned, Adrian, your first impression of them was just how smooth they were, the boat handling, the skills. It makes a big difference in these skiffs, doesn't it? It's one thing having that straight line speed, but being slick on every boat handling manoeuvre makes a hell of a difference.
Yeah, it does, because you only need one tiny little, as we looked and could see during the race, one little dip of the wing, it translates directly into boat lengths. And all that preparation they've done, they were never distracted by any equipment at all during the regatta. They minimised any type of crew manoeuvres that caused them. And they were obviously very confident in their ability to, if they had any setbacks, to get back again into it.
Yeah, great job by Honda Marine. Very impressive indeed. Look, it's a light as finish to this race. Behind the group we've told you about, I'm seeing SeaTech Marine, who are going to finish just ahead of Our Marine Pittwater, Birkenhead Point Marina, and Appliance Online. That finishes out your top 10. Pretty certain that Honda Marine will race tomorrow. The ribbon ceremony is typically after the last race. They'll want to make sure they pick up their ribbon, the traditional way of showing who has won this regatta. And so I'm pretty sure we'll see them tomorrow. But we'll make sure I get an interview with them tonight after racing. That'll go up on social media tomorrow morning, and you might get a chance to watch that in the live show. We'll also talk to ASCC. Super impressive winners today. Adrian, your last thoughts on ASCC and just your general impression. Sad that we lose you. I'd love you to come out tomorrow, but we're full up tomorrow. So your last impression, tell us what you thought about today and about ASCC as well.
Well, today's one of those days where the boats that did well weren't necessarily locals on the harbour, and they weren't necessarily locals. They didn't have the benefit of years and years of sailing here, and it just showed they had their heads out of the boat. They already had that stuff that was automatic, which is their boat skills and boat handling, so that they're able to look around, and they just did a superb job. And I don't often like to say good things about the Kiwis, but I just cannot say anything that would not detract from such a fantastic victory. And ASCC today, they really did do a job. They were confident. They didn't ever look around too much under pressure. They kept it all together, and it was a fine win for them in one of the toughest courses on this harbour. Yeah,
great job from all of them. Look, we're going to wrap up our transmission here. Make sure you join us tomorrow. The minor places, although not that minor, second and third in a JJ Skiff Championship, well worth fighting for. Winning group are in this, Smeg are in it, Asker in it, and we think ASCC may be as well. Make sure you join us tomorrow at 2:30 from the Camera Cat, 2:15 from the boat part, the race live at 2:45 for our last race. Thank you today, Jimmy Bury, brilliant driving, thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
Our tech team, awesome as usual, and thank you so much to Adrian Cahalan, lawyer, meteorologist, world-class navigator, skiff sailor, all-round good egg. Adrian, thanks so much. Join us again another time.
Thanks, Mark. Great to be out here.
And back at home, make sure you join us tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow live for the Camera Cat at 2:30. Good day and goodbye from the Camera Cat.